Hi everyone and welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description.
Lord of Mystery. I traveled through time and became Amon's clone by author Li Meng Zhen. Chapter 31-60. Chapter 31, Blasphemy. After soaking in the cold water for over half an hour and scrubbing himself repeatedly several times, Li Meng finally left the lake reluctantly in his soaking wet clothes. He climbed back to the mountain peak and retrieved his fashionable fish skin bag and the bottle containing the leftover rose bishop blood. By the time he climbed back down the mountain, his clothes had dried completely under the intense sunlight, and he was even on the verge of sweating again. Under the shade of a large tree halfway down the mountain, Li Meng set down his luggage and observed his surroundings. Finding that all creatures were lying low due to the midday heat, he decided to pray to number 4 here to digest the potion. Nothing was more important than quickly increasing his strength. Moreover, Li Meng felt that if he completely digested the potion, he could try taking off the necklace. The negative effect of random hearing loss was too uncontrollable. Regarding the acting and digestion of the listener potion, Li Meng had thought about it for a long time. He believed the key to acting as a listener was, well, listening. As for how to act as a listener, Li Meng guessed it probably wasn't listening to ordinary people chatter, nor was it listening to the speeches of comedians or politicians, and certainly not listening to some gossip or rumors. None of those were mystical enough and were quite boring, not something a beyonder should be doing. A true listener could only listen to the voices of other beyonders, preferably powerful beings at the level of angels or true gods. Li Meng recalled every true god and angel he knew, and finally realized he could only pray to number 4 to get a response, digesting the potion by listening to the teachings of an angel. As for other mysterious entities, with the necklace on he couldn't hear them, and without it, listening would mean death. Praying to Mr. Fool felt even more embarrassing than praying to No. 4. The pointer that tinkers with time. The shadow that wanders through fate. The embodiment of deceit and mischief. The great son of the creator. The industrious and responsible channel administrator. Before Li Meng could finish reciting number 4's honorific name, his vision blurred, and he saw that ancient palace shrouded in mist, as well as the giant wall clock hanging on the palace wall. This time the palace gates were wide open. Li Meng saw number 4 wearing a classic black robe and a pointed soft hat, with curly black hair, black eyes, a broad forehead, thin cheeks, and a crystal monocle on his face. He was sitting upright on the large throne in the center of the hall, looking somewhat haggard. "Stop reciting, I was just looking for you." A majestic and heavy voice echoed in Li Meng's mind. "Take off the HLKT necklace, otherwise it's very strenuous for you to listen. I was trying to contact you just now, but you blocked it all. I can shield ravings of this level for a short time." Li Meng took off the necklace and found that those terrifying ravings had indeed disappeared. "I know what you're thinking. Now there are 2 pieces of bad news, one concerns your life, and the other concerns your future. You can choose which one to hear first. Is it that scary? Can I choose not to hear either?" After thinking for a moment, Li Meng said hesitantly. "The one concerning my life first. According to news from the forsaken land of the gods, with the help of a certain mysterious entity, the true creator is about to give birth to 2 offspring of an evil god in Loan. The locations cannot be determined. This news was verified by our avatar lurking in the Hermits of Fate. Shortly after confirming this news, he was contaminated by the true creator and lost control, and is suspected of being captured by the church." Number 4 suddenly curled his lips into a long, mischievous grin as if a prank had succeeded. "Actually, this is good news for you. We have decided to postpone your departure for Backland. With your current strength, going there would be useless, you'd only be adding to their collection of sealed artifacts. We need to wait until the offspring of an evil god are fully born before determining our next move." "Alright, then what about the other bad news? Just now, I sensed that there seems to be a problem with your potion. Give me that bottle, I'll check it." Li Meng was still wondering how to perform the sacrificial ritual when he saw number 4 reach out a hand. The bottle crossed an infinite distance and arrived in his grasp. Number 4 turned the bottle in his palm and then adjusted the monocle on his right eye. The listener potion Li Meng had just consumed suddenly appeared in the center of the bottle. That black jelly-like substance rapidly separated, turning back into various raw materials and flying out of the bottle, like a reverse playback of Li Meng's potion concocting actions. As the final bit of pure water flew out of the bottle became completely empty. Number 4 suddenly revealed a happy smile. Interesting, so interesting. I heard Roussel Gustave improved distillation technology and increased the purity of distilled water, but I didn't expect it to be clean to this extent. Seeing Li Meng's bewildered face, Number 4 smiled even more happily. The pure water used to concoct potions for the secret supplicant pathway cannot be too pure. It must be ensured that the blood of a fallen creature added to it can contaminate the entire water source in advance, buffering the greater contamination caused by the main ingredients. In the thousands of years since our father wrote this formula, it has always been correct. But Roussel's distillation technology has excluded all possible impurities from the water in this bottle, leaving nothing for the blood of a fallen creature to contaminate. This is a very pure potion. It is so pure that the moment you swallow it, you can hear the voice of the true Creator. It can even let the true Creator sense this purity. To serve a lord of corruption and filth with cleanliness and purity, this is a very interesting act of blasphemy. Number 4 could not help but show a smile on his face. In a long time, there has not been such an interesting performance among our avatars. Of course, as a price, you will be watched by the true Creator. You will be unable to obtain any blessings from the true Creator, and you will be hunted by the Aurora Order and all believers of the true Creator. Life must have some surprises and accidents to be full of fun. This is the kind of life an avatar should lead. The smile on Number 4's face grew deeper and deeper. I will tell your story to all the avatars and spread your achievements. Oh, right, the blessing I infused into you has been exhausted. You might not have such good luck in the future. Listening to Number 4's voice, which was either teasing or sarcastic, and feeling the rapid digestion of the listener potion in his body, Li Meng had mixed feelings in his heart. Let's end it here for today. Next time, remember to perform a complete prayer ritual. I like the scent of rosemary and golden mint, and I also like the texture of gold and crystal. Although we are both avatars, the prayer ritual must be devout and solemn, otherwise it will seriously affect the digestion effect of the listener potion. The ritual is recorded in the number 9998 Scholars Book, along with the sacrificial ritual. Be sure to perform the rituals strictly according to the requirements in the book. Remember, we must maintain respect for the gods. Chapter 32, Raw Marinated Shark Meat. An angel-level voice really does wonders for digesting the listener potion. The moment Number 4 closed the ritual, Li Meng quickly picked up the HLKT necklace with his left hand and put it around his neck. Sensing the progress of the potion's digestion in his body, he found that at least 1/5 had already been digested. At this rate, with 5 to 10 more sessions with Number 4, the potion would be completely digested. Unfortunately, as Li Meng currently cannot hear the whispers of other existences, he would not gain powerful, distorted, or unique abilities. He remained an ordinary person who could only rely on sealed artifacts for combat. Because their pathways were different, Number 4 could only provide feedback on some mediocre Beyonder abilities that could be used by any pathway, making his direct combat strength very different from those lunatics in the Aurora Order. The only silver lining was that a listener's spirituality would increase significantly, allowing Li Meng to better use the shepherd's glove. No. 9998. Not only did the number of uses increase, but the effects also became better. A gust of wild wind rose from under the shade of the trees, carrying Li Meng as he glided toward the distant path. This time, his wind control technique was more proficient, and his spirituality lasted longer. He glided over 1,000 meters from halfway up the mountain to the small path below, even managing to adjust his posture using the updrafts. It felt like flying. Li Meng began to familiarize himself with the glove's Beyonder abilities one by one, stopping only when his spirituality was nearly exhausted. Now, his spirituality was enough to support 5 full uses of the glove's Beyonder abilities. If he consciously conserved his spirituality, he could even use them more than 10 times. It wasn't until 3 in the afternoon that Li Meng walked out of the country path and found a rental carriage on the main road. After several transfers, he returned to the hotel, stopping by to check on the £600 lying in his anonymous account at Backland Bank. Miss Justice is truly a person of her word, though with Mr. Fool's brilliant performance, any normal person would choose to keep their word. I have £239 in cash available now. Better not touch that huge sum for the time being. Buying the main ingredients for the potion in the future will cost at least £600. Thinking of money, Li Meng suddenly realized he was still paying a huge sum every day. Currently, he spent 3 souls a day on accommodation, while the previous place was even more expensive at 7 souls. 3 souls a day meant 90 souls a month, which converted to a golden list, which is £3. Over a year, that would be £36, enough to buy a cheap main ingredient for a potion. Moreover, eating out every day was also a huge expense, costing no less than accommodation. The nearly £250 in cash sponsored by that mysterious listener had decreased by a full £20 after only 3 days. This money must be saved. Now that number 4 had notified him that they wouldn't be going to Backland for the time being, he should buy a house if he could, or rent long-term if he had to, saving as much as possible. Li Meng looked through the real estate sections of several newspapers like the Tiana Daily and the Tiana Post one by one, and wisely gave up on the idea of buying a house. Tiana City was divided by locals into the upper 3 streets, middle 3 streets, lower 3 streets, and the upper, middle, and lower districts. The first place Li Meng encountered when he arrived in Tiana was Salmon Street, which was adjacent to the Pier District and was Tiana's main street for tourism and consumption. Along with Whale Street, where the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Governor of Tiana were located, and Eel Street, which was densely packed with merchants and bankers, these were collectively known as the upper 3 streets. The hotel Li Meng was currently staying in was located at the junction of the suburbs and the city area, which locals called Blackfish Street. Together with Squid Street, where Li Meng had met the beggar and which was the site of Tiana's largest salted fish processing center, and Octopus Street, which was filled with casinos and bars, these were collectively known as the lower 3 streets. Near the pier, a small fleet of the Kingdom of Loan was stationed, and it was also the location of the Church of Storms Cathedral. This was Tiana's Pier District, also known as the Upper District. The area far from the city and closer to the inland was called the Lower District by locals due to its arid climate and lack of rain. Between Whale Street and the sea, there was a large area of flat land called the Middle District by Tiana locals, which was the site of local factories and the shipbuilding industry. As for the selling prices of houses, none in the upper 3 districts were below £10,000, and even in the lower 3 districts, they were over £500. The difference between house selling prices and rental prices is too large. I'd better just rent honestly. Besides, I might go to Backland at any time. Li Meng comforted himself while looking for a suitable target in the newspaper. Right pointing arrow. After a long period of research, Li Meng finally found a building he felt was quite suitable. It was located at 15 Swordfish Street, one of the middle 3 streets. It had a basement and a lawn, and he could barely see the distant sea. Although the house was a bit dilapidated and remote, Li Meng fell in love with it after a glance at the description. The landlord was a merchant who had moved to Eel Street after striking it rich. The two of them readily closed the deal at a price of 12 souls per week. Since the place was too remote and inconvenient for travel, Li Meng suggested paying once every 10 weeks, £12 at a time. The landlord, Mr. Jarrett, was an extremely rugged and forthright man. Hearing Li Meng's suggestion, he said in a loud voice, "Pay once a year, £30 at a time." The house hadn't been lived in for a long time. Li Meng spent a few more pounds to hire several maids recommended by a neighbor to clean it up. It took a whole afternoon and £2 in cash before it was barely habitable. The house itself had some old furniture that was still usable. Considering he wouldn't have guests in the short term, Li Meng even saved money on buying new furniture, except for bedding and kitchenware. By the time everything was cleaned up, it was late at night. Li Meng lay in bed but couldn't fall asleep. He opened the number 9998 Scholars book and looked at it for a long time without being able to process a single word. He didn't know if it was because he was too excited about his promotion to listener, or a sequela caused by the true creator's killing intent, or the result of staying up late and waking up late these past few days. Li Meng picked up the shepherd's gloves several times, wanting to use the hypnotist characteristic within to give himself some psychiatric treatment, but after putting them on a few times, he eventually put them down weakly. He didn't want to know the result, nor did he want to undergo treatment. Early the next morning, Li Meng got out of bed with bloodshot eyes. He decided to go to the ocean to practice using his wind-blessed abilities. It wasn't until evening that he exhausted his day's practice. He had the rental carriage driver pass by the Blackfish Hotel, where he picked up a letter. This was a reply from Mr. Locke. In the letter, he euphemistically mentioned the losses caused to him by Li Meng's early departure, but said he could continue to provide introductions if there was an opportunity. It seemed he would have to spend more money. Li Meng wrote another letter to Locke, telling him his third new address and hoping he would notify him. He had the driver slowly head toward the Fisheye Bar on Whale Street, while he reopened the number 9998 Scholars book in the carriage. Sequence 7, Shadow Ascetic. Supplementary ingredients: 60 milliliters of pure water, 5 drops of any fallen creature's blood, 7 grams of adult tumbleweed seeds, 10 grams of black gemstone powder, 5 grams of fresh wet moss. Main ingredients: 1 shadow ghost rabbit head, 1 adult tumbleweed. Seeing the rabbit head, Li Meng suddenly felt a bit hungry and realized he hadn't eaten dinner yet. He opened his pocket watch, checked the time, and felt it was still early for the underground market to open. He decided to eat first, and today he would have spicy rabbit head. Li Meng asked many places, only to find out to his frustration that there was nothing but fish here. There was no habit of eating rabbits at all, no one had even thought of eating them. Of course, this was also because the island was somewhat desertified, making rabbits hard to find. Finally, under the enthusiastic promotion of a shop assistant, Li Meng ordered a dish of raw marinated shark meat and ate it with tears streaming down his face. "I'll never try these strange dishes on a whim again. It's simply an insult to my intelligence." Perhaps the smell was too strong for the driver to bear as well. As he drove the carriage, the driver kindly reminded him, "Locals like us generally don't go to that place. I heard that Sonia Flavor Restaurant is run by a real Sonia Islander. He developed some raw marinated meats based on the local specialty, raw marinated puffin, and its reputation has attracted many outsiders." The driver cracked his whip hard against the horse and said loudly, "They're all scammers. Just make sure you don't vomit in my carriage." Chapter 33, Apothecary. Tiana, Whale Street, Fisheye Bar. At the entrance of the bar, Li Meng saw the red lantern hanging next to the sign, illuminating the bright red words, "Various mystical items for sale." This time, arriving earlier, he found the hidden passage that the young man Wright had pointed out behind the bar. Many local fishermen were waiting in line, slowly entering, some carrying baskets, some with sacks on their backs, and some pushing small carts, looking like they were going to a market. Ahead of Li Meng was an old woman pushing a cart. Her temples were streaked with white, and her face was covered in deep wrinkles. She was pushing a homemade four-wheeled cart, loudly arguing with Mr. Fain in a thick Tiana accent of the Ruan language. Mr. Fain, dressed in a blue robe and possessing an extremely dignified appearance, had completely transformed at this moment, his face flushed red, his hair standing on end. "I told you, you can't bring this in. Look at you, this is just an ordinary swordfish. You can buy several pounds at the fish market for one sol. This is a mystical item trading market. How does yours qualify? I said you can't bring it in, so you can't." The old woman was not to be outdone. She yelled loudly in a hoarse voice, her echo particularly noticeable in the small room. "Fain, you heartless man. When you were young, I was the one who gave a dragon bone fish to the church priest so you could join the choir. Now you say I can't come in. I will come in today. If you have the guts today, tell the Lord of Storms to strike me down." Li Meng saw Mr. Fain's face turn even redder, his thick right hand clenching and unclenching several times. Seeing this, Li Meng finally understood why a Beander market had turned into a fish market. He put on his newly bought wolf fish mask, took out 2 soles, handed them to the young man next to him, bypassed the group of fishmongers, and walked directly into the underground passage behind the room. Upon entering the market, Li Meng abandoned his idea of finding a bargain and bypassed the fish stalls, heading straight for the stalls selling various Beander materials, manned by masked vendors. 60 milliliters of pure water can be bought at any time. Fallen creature blood is still available. 5 grams of fresh wet moss should be found in a garden corner. 7 grams of mature tumbleweed seeds, 10 grams of black gemstone powder, these I can try to buy in the market. Li Meng mentally tallied the potion ingredients required by a shadow ascetic, deciding to first gather the easily found materials, then prepare for those that were harder to obtain. However, as he expected, he only found vendors selling pure water and black gemstone powder here. This market was already somewhat useless to him. With the thought that since he had come, he shouldn't leave empty-handed, Li Meng activated his notary ability and appraised the fish one by one, finally discovering amidst the fishy smell that they were indeed just ordinary fish. If I ever think about finding a bargain again, I'm a curly baboon. Forget it, let's see if the person who wants to buy the apothecary formula is here, and get those 200 pounds first. It didn't take long for Li Meng to find 2 glass bottles, level with the water, in an inconspicuous corner. The stall owner was still wearing the swordfish mask, leaning lazily against the wall. It seems the other party is also a regular, not even changing his mask. This transaction should be safe. Li Meng walked to the stall and squatted down. Just as he was about to hint at the stall owner, he saw the owner's hand discreetly open, revealing a small note inside. How much? 200 pounds. Li Meng said in a voice almost inaudible to others. Wait for me opposite the back door, 30 minutes. The stall owner spread his palm and loudly exclaimed, I told you, my pure water is especially good. I'll go home and get some more. Li Meng walked to the side, pretending to examine items at other stalls, casually wandering around. He bought all the materials needed for one prayer to number 4, and also purchased some potentially useful materials recorded in the Scholar's Book number 9998, spending a total of 42 pounds. Right pointing arrow. Number 4 has good taste, always picking the expensive stuff. Especially those gold powders, which are more expensive than gold of the same weight. It took 3 or 4 stall owners to barely gather enough. An angel, what use are these for? Next time I'll have to subtly advise against such formalism. By the time Li Meng emerged from the underground market, exactly half an hour had passed. The man was still wearing the swordfish mask, its long, pointed spike protruding from his head, looking particularly comical. Seeing Li Meng approach, the man removed the fish head mask, revealing the gentle and reserved face of a middle-aged man. Melvin Haynes, do you have the apothecary formula? Li Meng also removed his mask, stating the Aurora Order identity that number 4 had prepared for him. Julius, yes, how do you intend to trade it? Melvin Haynes took off his black robe and pointed to a nearby inn called Birds and Fish. Just now, while you weren't here, I already prepared a room. Let's go inside to talk. Li Meng followed Melvin Haynes into the inn, only to find that despite its plain exterior, the interior decoration was quite luxurious. This is one of the best inns on Whale Street. A night's stay costs at least £1. Of course, its greatest feature is safety. Professional security personnel patrol 24 hours a day, missing no loophole or crevice. They are equipped with 5 steam rifles, powerful enough to instantly tear a person to shreds, rendering even the most powerful Beander useless. Melvin Haynes walked along, casually introducing the inn's history to Li Meng, emphasizing its various security measures. Its investors are the governor sent by Loan to Tiana. Those important figures like to conduct business here. Even many powerful Beyonders stay here. I've met quite a few people here and learned some things about Beyonders. Oh, here we are, room, Seagull. I've had several pleasant transactions with a certain important figure here. I'm just here for a reasonable transaction, you don't need to be so nervous. Li Meng followed Melvin into the room without a word. As soon as they entered the room, Melvin skillfully drew the curtains, closed the door, and sat down at a table against the wall, saying in a calm yet slightly trembling voice. Can I see the formula first? I need to verify its authenticity. No problem. But how do you distinguish between real and fake? Melvin's mouth curved slightly downward, and his voice became heavy. Our father was also a doctor. He once obtained an apothecary potion, a gift from an important figure. Unfortunately, that important figure later lost contact, and father couldn't get subsequent potions or the formula. However, he was exceptionally talented and, by observing that important figure's potion concoction process, he was able to identify some of the ingredients. This can be used to determine the authenticity of the formula. Li Meng pulled out the paper with the apothecary formula from his wai and handed it to Melvin. Melvin's eyes quickly scanned the note, confirming the formula's authenticity. He promptly pulled a stack of banknotes from his wallet and handed them to Li Meng. Exactly 20 £10 banknotes. I didn't expect the Dream Stealer Beander characteristic to be so useful for counting money, and it even has a built-in authenticity verification effect. Is this an inherent ability of a thief? Melvin watched Li Meng quickly count the money, then let out a long sigh and said, "I've paid for this room for 1 day, you can use it as you wish. Now I need to start preparing the materials. If you have higher sequence potion formulas, you can come find me at 27 Swordfish Street." This was a pleasant transaction, and I hope for more cooperation in the future. The signing contract has been sent. This book is about 2 to 3 million words long, please feel free to invest. Chapter 34 The Protagonist. Returning to the newly rented house at 15 Swordfish Street, Li Meng decided to take advantage of the night to pray to number 4 once more. Open black lens bracket. Remember the domain name of this site, Taiwan Novel Network, super smooth and worry-free close black lens bracket. Since it's just a clone anyway, I'm sure he won't mind working a bit of overtime at night. Being an angelic mythical creature, he won't die from overwork and cause public controversy. Li Meng muttered while starting to set up the ritual according to the process recorded in Scholar's Book number 9998 and number 4's requirements for sacrificial items. First, he brought over a large grandfather clock scavenged from a second-hand market and placed it in the center of the hall, on the only intact table in the entire villa. He carefully wiped the casing clean, revealing large patches of peeling paint and deep scratches on the wooden base. Next, Li Meng tightened the mainspring and gently flicked the pendulum. The pendulum swung randomly a couple of times, becoming increasingly weak, and soon stopped. As for the clock face, only a slight clicking sound could be heard from inside. The 3 hands on the dial remained motionless. Putting on gloves, Li Meng used his right thumb and index finger to gently twist the mainspring. Extremely faint sounds came from within. As the movement increased, Li Meng felt a subtle but clearly present resistance. The feedback from the decryption ability is, the spring is rusted and has lost its ability to recoil. Li Meng pulled out number 9998 Scholar's Book to see if it could be repaired. Li Meng closed his eyes, his left hand pressing on the clock and his right hand holding the book, and began to chant in his mind. A way to repair this grandfather clock. A way to repair this grandfather clock. While chanting, he injected power into the book. After finishing the 7th chant, Li Meng opened his eyes, and a new entry appeared in Scholar's Book No. 9998. Manufacture, repair, and maintenance of low-level mechanical basic components. Li Meng pointed his finger at that entry, and the pages flipped rapidly with a rustling sound, stopping on a page covered in ancient Hermes language incantations. On it was recorded a complete repair ritual for mystical items. Gold reconstruction art. Bury the item to be repaired in ground gold powder, then heat and melt them together. During the melting process, recite the corresponding ancient Hermes language incantations while adding specified gemstone powder and special materials. After maintaining a stable temperature for 7 days and 7 nights, the complete item can be obtained. The book also recorded in detail which materials were needed for which items, attached a large number of ancient Hermes language incantations, and provided extremely detailed descriptions of possible accidents and negative effects. It looked particularly rigorous and reliable. Li Meng calculated that to repair that spring, he would need at least 10 pounds worth of gold powder, plus a large amount of hard-to-calculate material costs, and 7 days of wasted time. Forget it, I'll find a watchmaker to fix it tomorrow before praying to No. 4. Using a broken clock to pray to the angel of time, he would definitely be angry. Li Meng helplessly closed Scholar's Book No. 9998. July 7, sunny. After Li Meng found a watchmaker on the street and spent £1 to fix the ancient grandfather clock, he began his most devout prayer to No. 4. The perfume made of rosemary and gold mint on the altar evaporated rapidly as if boiled, and the whole bowl of gold powder dissipated into the air as recklessly as dust, making Li Meng's heart twitch with pain. He had restocked several times at the underwater market, almost sweeping away all the gold powder and crystals there, and even nearly buying out the rosemary and gold mint. Everyone in the entire underwater market made a small fortune from it. Right pointing arrow. The merchants took the opportunity to raise prices, the magnitude of which was jaw-dropping. Number 4's appetite also grew larger and larger. Repeated doubling completely emptied Li Meng's pockets. The 700 pounds Li Meng had worked so hard to earn from Audrey changed hands in the blink of an eye, making a huge contribution to the economic development of Tiana. But in the end, the effort paid off. In just 3 days, Li Meng's listener potion was completely digested, completing a Guinness record in the mystical world. That kind of overflowing response, with an angel nagging in his ear to the point of being slightly annoying, once made Li Meng feel that the potion in his body was not enough to digest and he wanted another portion. Fortunately, the final 700 gold pound bill woke him up, making him deeply realize how luxurious this acting digestion was. Although it was expensive, Li Meng felt it was worth it. Not only because it could avoid the pollution of the true creator and reduce his risk of losing control, but more importantly, when the potion was rapidly digested, the feeling in his body was like the entire soul being sublimated, entering a peculiar sage state that made one unable to stop. Is there anything in this world more joyful than potion digestion? Li Meng couldn't help but have this thought. Loan Kingdom, Ahawa County, Ting'an City, Seer Club. Klein was waiting boredly in the club's citrine room, hoping the next business would come soon. At the very beginning, since he was a newcomer and not very famous, he set the divination price at 1 sol, hoping to attract a batch of new customers with high quality and low price. Due to using the Beyander abilities granted by the potion, his divinations were both accurate and fast, which attracted many people who came for his reputation, allowing Klein to get a lot of business. However, when Klein was divining, he would always remember that he only charged 1 sol, and he would start to feel uncomfortable again. But due to the seer acting method, it was not convenient for him to raise the price now. Backland, Empress Borough, Hall Family Villa. A group of young nobles was holding a grand banquet. Inside the classical and magnificent banquet hall, several chandeliers were set with burning candles, emitting a pleasant fragrance and accumulating a light no less than that of gas lamps. Long tables were laid with delicious food such as pan-seared foie gras, roast steak, roast spring chicken, fried sole, daisy oysters, stewed lamb, and cream soup. Bottles of mist champagne, Ormir wine, and Southville red wine emitted enticing colors under the light. Servants in red vests carried trays with crystal glasses, weaving between gentlemen and ladies dressed either elegantly or gorgeously. The host of the banquet, the young Miss Audrey, avoided the bustle and stood quietly in the shadows of the floor-to-ceiling window curtains, observing every move of the people coming and going at the banquet, guessing their inner thoughts, whether rich, foul, cunning, greedy, frivolous, stupid, or vain. On the spacious balcony outside the floor-to-ceiling window, in a dark corner, a large golden retriever was quietly watching all this, seemingly learning, observing, and studying them. Her name was Susie. A few days ago, after being induced by her owner to drink the strange silver-white liquid in her dog bowl, she suddenly felt the meaning of her dog life and existence. She learned from her owner to sit quietly in the dark, observing those animals that walked upright like her owner, learning to imitate their language and actions, and studying the deep meaning hidden in their every move. Now she no longer wanted to play with those of her kind who only knew how to bark, woof woof, and wag their tails randomly. She felt that she and they were not the same kind of creature. This was her unique miracle, she was the protagonist of this world. Chapter 35, Sense of Security. Dear Mr. Julius, I have understood your meaning. I am always eager to help, but the coachman has warned me that I cannot bring people in casually anymore, or I will pay a greater price, even losing the ability to enter. If you need to enter, there will be a trading gathering on the evening of July 8th. You can wait for me at the original location. This time, it will require at least 20 pounds. Your friend, Locke Laval. Early in the morning, Li Meng retrieved the letter from the mailbox. Seeing the salutation, Mr. Julius, he remembered this was the identity he had used to infiltrate the Aurora Order, which he had casually written down in a letter and told Locke about. If Locke went to the church to inform on him, he might even receive a handsome reward. He read the simple letter several times over, thinking that Beyonders of the Spectator pathway were truly different, far better than those seers who only spoke in half-truths or those of the Hunter pathway whose words always made one want to resort to violence. The delivery speed of the Tiana post office is truly astonishing. It's only a few streets away, yet it took a full 3 days. It's time to prepare for next Monday's Tarot Club meeting. Miss Justice is still waiting for me. What formula should I sell? Li Meng recalled the content of the last Tarot Club meeting and realized a serious problem. Apart from formulas, he seemed to have nothing else to offer. In a way, he was even worse off than Alger, who at least could occasionally leak some internal information from the Church of Storms. Any news about Amon from his side was unsuitable to mention at the Tarot Club. Aside from Amon, he had no suitable channels for information, and thus no valuable intel. As for reminding Klein about the matter of 008, due to the vast difference in their power levels, Li Meng could only hint at it indirectly, relying on Mr. Fool to figure it out himself. In essence, the so-called Tarot Club was an online trading platform developed by Klein. Held within Saphira Castle, it possessed exceptionally high concealment, making it nearly impossible for others or organizations to detect. Using his own wisdom and power, Klein guaranteed all transactions within the Tarot Club, ensuring deals were free from fraud and counterfeiting concerns. This high credibility led to high efficiency and low costs. These conditions made the Tarot Club an ideal platform for conducting transactions in the shadows. To put it simply, it was a place to exchange knowledge and items from one's affiliated organizations. The more powerful the affiliated organization, the more bargaining chips one had available. In the later stages, the Tarot Club had completely transformed into a venue where representatives of various organizations exchanged interests. The high-efficiency, low-cost transactions allowed Tarot Club members to progress rapidly, reaching realms they had never dared to imagine before. Later on, as the Tarot Club members' promotions were too slow to keep up with Mr. Fool's pace, they gradually became marginalized, evolving from individual traders into subordinates of Mr. Fool. Li Meng seemed to see his own fate. Of course, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, Klein was arguably the most benevolent deity of this era. Throughout the Tarot Club's growth, not to mention deaths, most members hadn't even suffered injuries, something utterly inconceivable to ordinary people. For Li Meng, the Tarot Club was even more special. As the King of Angels of the Thief Pathway, the conflict between Amon and the Fool was inevitable, irreconcilable, and a fight to the death. Any news about Amon leaked at the Tarot Club would be taken extremely seriously. Even if Klein didn't notice, the Evernight Goddess wouldn't overlook any clues. After all, in recent years, her attention had been almost entirely fixed on Klein. Similarly, Li Meng didn't want any information about Saphira Castle to pass from him to other avatars of Amon. This was Li Meng's principle. Although he himself was also an avatar of Amon, he absolutely could not let other Amon avatars discover Saphira Castle, let alone gain control over it. Innate mythical creatures were too lacking in humanity and order, filled with chaos and deception, offering no sense of security. Thinking of this, Li Meng suddenly had a peculiar idea. Although Alger, through a twist of fate, had no connection to the Tarot Club, he could still contribute money and effort to it in other ways. After all, Alger's loyalty to the bishops of the Church of Storms was there for all to see. He also needed to consider developing some believers in advance. They would surely be useful in the future. Especially for digesting high-sequence potions, it was almost impossible without believers. Theoretically, the digestion of all high-sequence potions could be prepared for in advance through acting. Therefore, the fastest method should be to simultaneously perform the acting and digestion for all high-sequence potions. Just like Klein, where death and resurrection constituted the acting and digestion for Sequence 2, Miracle Invoker. Acquiring a vast amount of knowledge from the City of Silver in advance provided the acting materials for Sequence 3, Scholar of Yore. The world persona operated by Klein was equivalent to serving the Lord of the Mysteries, performing the acting and digestion for Sequence 1, Attendant of Mysteries. As for Klein, a mere mortal, disguising himself as the Fool and reaping great benefits from it, that was equivalent to deceiving fate, making preparations in advance for accommodating the uniqueness of Sequence 0, the Fool. Such methods of acting and digestion were faster and more convenient than praying to number 4, allowing Klein to overtake others after becoming a demigod, leaving former powerhouses like Ms. Hermit far behind. As for the current Li Meng, although the Shepherd's Gloves number 9998 allowed him to easily eliminate low-sequence beyonders, and the Scholar's Book number 9998 allowed him to obtain potion formulas without any cost, these advantages would quickly vanish after achieving demigod status. After Mr. Fool discovered the Evernight Goddess's goodwill towards him, he no longer needed the help of other Tarot Club members. The entire atmosphere of the Tarot Club shifted to everyone marveling at Mr. World's work efficiency. Li Meng flipped through the scholar's book number 9998. What appeared were still only the formula for the secret supplicant pathway sequence 7, shadow ascetic, and the sequence 8 potion formulas for other pathways. I still need to advance to sequence 7 as soon as possible. Otherwise, I won't even be able to sell formulas, ending up like furs. Otherwise, I could also research that mysterious gold restoration art to help others repair mystical items. But didn't the inventor of that ritual consider that the gold consumed by such ceremonies is often more expensive than buying the item directly? I'm only a sequence 8. Why am I thinking about matters of angels and true gods? Have I gotten too full of myself? Having sorted out his mood, Li Meng decided to first go out for a hearty meal, then set off to visit the mysterious Mr. Locke at 77 Salmon Street. He would try to sell the formula for the Spectator Pathway Sequence 8, Telepathos. If the transaction succeeded, he could get at least 450 pounds. Li Meng counted his remaining pounds and found that after number 4's meddling, he now only had 33 pounds left. 77 Salmon Street and 15 Swordfish Street are very close. I can just walk there. Chapter 36, The Dark Wolf. Just as Lamont finished his meal and was about to set off for Salmon Street, the book in his embrace suddenly began to warm slightly. According to the agreement, this was number 4 initiating an emergency meeting notification. Lamont unhurriedly finished his last bite, returned home, locked the main door, went down to the basement, and directly recited number 4's honorific name towards the grandfather clock. This time, no gold powder, gems, or perfume were offered. Familiar, vast expanses of mist appeared before his eyes, then these mists twisted into a huge monocle, lines of text floating out from the lens. At the top were still the familiar red characters. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator. The 2636th Clone Expansion Meeting of the Land of Betrayal now officially begins. This meeting is temporarily convened and chaired by No. 4. Except for lurkers and deep divers, all non-participants will be considered abstentions, with other clones voting to decide the outcome. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator. The trail of the Dark Wolf Cortar has been discovered in the Forsaken Land of the Gods. All clones are hereby summoned to enter the Forsaken Land of the Gods for pursuit and suppression. This time, the number of entrants to the Forsaken Land of the Gods will be decided by vote. No. 51 Parasite. Isn't the Dark Wolf Cortar only sequence 2? Why such a big fuss? Aren't there many powerful clones in the Forsaken Land of the Gods? Where have number 1 and number 2 gone? No. 43 Parasite. Yes. The clones in the Forsaken Land of the Gods are much more powerful than us. Why should we go? No. 49 Parasite. Number 51 makes a good point. It's difficult enough for us to even enter the Forsaken Land of the Gods, and we would need help from others. Even if we go, we'd be useless. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator. Please do not casually discuss other deep divers and sleepers, or you will be muted. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch. I can go, but will there be a species barrier? No. 23 Deceit Mentor. Get to the point. Don't interrupt. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch. Which of your eyes sees that I'm not talking about the point? Put on your monocle and take a good look. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator. Stop arguing. No. 3006, I know what you're thinking. You don't need to go this time. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch. Number 4, you're so good to me, unlike number 23, who isn't even an angel. That ordinary yet confident attitude is really funny. No. 23 Deceit Mentor. I suggest we clear out all witch clones. They're polluting the channel with their smoke and miasma. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch. Don't put on airs. Don't think I'm afraid of you just because you woke up earlier. In the land of betrayal, if you want to lurk, you still have to look at us. With your little skills, running errands all day between the Forsaken Land of the Gods and the land of betrayal, being a messenger, what capital do you have to boss people around here? No. 23 Deceit Mentor. Number 3006, I'll go back right now and tell number 3 to have you transferred back to the forsaken land of the gods to participate in the Dark Wolf's pursuit. No. 4 Fake Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, number 23, stop talking. It's been over 1,000 years. Haven't you digested the potion of deceit mentor yet? No. 3006 Pleasure Witch, exactly. Which piece of intelligence from the land of betrayal wasn't painstakingly gathered by us? Look at me, staying up late and waking up late every day, my skin is all worn out. You think you can just order me back? No. 51 Parasite, number 3006, where's your hardship? Last time I went to see you, you were still sleeping at noon. No. 215 Fire Thief, yeah, mine is real hardship. Drifting on water all year round, wind and sun every day, not even knowing when my life might be lost. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch, number 215, is that hardship? Do you think I don't know what you're doing? You brought that upon yourself. Does it have anything to do with others? No. 23 Deceit Mentor, please decide on the personnel to return to the forsaken land of the gods quickly. I'll take them all back together. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, I know. I'm waiting. The result will come soon. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch, you must be waiting for that little cutie who went to Backland, right, number 4. No. 51 Parasite, number 3006, why are you on the assassin pathway? I think you're more proficient at using Dream Thief abilities than we are. Seeing this, Lamont noticed a new line of red characters slowly appearing. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, all personnel are now present. Voting begins now. I propose, those who did not attend this meeting shall be taken back to the forsaken land of the gods by number 23 to participate in the encirclement and suppression of the Dark Wolf. Others continue to lurk in the land of betrayal. Those who agree with my plan, please speak. Those who do not speak will be considered abstentions. No. 215 Fire Thief, I agree. No. 51 Parasite, agree. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch, agree. This time, far fewer people spoke. Lamont counted, less than 20, all agreeing. He then used his spirituality to condense an, agree. No. 9998 Listener, agree. No. 23 Deceit Mentor, this isn't good, is it? It's a bit against the rules. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, this is the law established by No. 0. All disputes shall be decided by vote for the final outcome. It's completely in accordance with the regulations. You take them over first. No. 23 Deceit Mentor, I don't even know where they are. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, I don't know either. Once outside the forsaken land of the gods, we cannot use authority to actively connect. We can only rely on the Beander characteristics aggregation law, or wait for them to actively pray. Of course, messengers can also be used. No. 23 Deceit Mentor, how long will it take to find them? No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, soon. If they recite my name, I will definitely transfer the anchor to you. Just search with peace of mind. No. 23 Deceit Mentor has left the current channel. After a long silence, a line of white characters slowly floated out on the monocle. No. 43 Parasite, is encircling and suppressing the Dark Wolf Kortar very dangerous? I always feel this matter isn't simple. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, number 43, if only you were half as smart as number 3006. The news I received is that number 8 discovered the Dark Wolf's earthly divine kingdom. According to my speculation, this is the ritual of the Servant of Secrets. Kortar has likely already advanced to Sequence 1. Even if the advancement wasn't successful, his strength is not something ordinary clones in the forsaken land of the gods can handle. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, number 8 is now out of contact, probably in grave danger. Currently, a large number of clones in the forsaken land of the gods have gone missing, most likely related to the Dark Wolf. No. 43 Parasite, but what does this have to do with us? Why should we go back? No. 4 Fake Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, of course it has to do with you. Didn't you previously request to be transferred back? I told number 3 about this, hence this vote. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch, is the Dark Wolf Kortar really that terrifying? Could it be the resurrection contingency of the Lord of the Spirit World? No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, actually, many of our clones have this speculation. The way this sequence 1 Beander characteristic of the Dark Wolf appeared is too strange. Especially number 8 suddenly disappearing after delivering the message is very unreasonable. No. 16 Deceit Mentor, yes. Number 8 was contaminated by the power of the primordial moon. Later, number 0 stole away the contamination, preserving the vitality bestowed by the primordial moon. Although his brain might not work very well, his survival ability is absolutely the strongest among his sequence. Unless it was sequence 0 or one of those few who took action, it's impossible for him to vanish so completely without a trace. No. 16 Deceit Mentor, I have personally experienced the power of the primordial moon. That terrifying vitality absolutely cannot be eliminated by beings of the same sequence. No. 4 Fate Trojan Horse, Channel Head Administrator, that Beander characteristic of the Attendant of Mysteries, Antigonus and Zeratul searched for it for thousands of years without finding it. For it to suddenly appear now, this matter is definitely related to the Lord of the Spirit World. No. 3006 Pleasure Witch, could our clones in the Forsaken Land of the Gods be completely wiped out by the Dark Wolf? Chapter 37, A Natural-Born Spectator. No. 3006 Demoness of Pleasure, could our avatars in the Forsaken Land of the Gods be unable to defeat the umbral demonic wolf Kotar? Seeing that no one answered, number 3006 seemed determined to know the outcome and repeated the question. Although Li Meng very much wanted to tell them that the umbral demonic wolf Kotar had only obtained the Beander characteristic of the Lord of the Spirit World by chance and wasn't as powerful as they imagined, considering that speaking out of turn at this moment would certainly be fatal, he ultimately held his tongue. After another long silence, a sentence suddenly popped up on the monocle. No. 51 The Parasite, wouldn't that be good? The avatars in the Forsaken Land of the Gods are always looking down on us, the avatars in the Land of Betrayal. If they're gone, we can just follow number 4 and rebuild the Amon family. I've even thought of a name, we could call it. No. 51 The Parasite has been muted. This mute will last until the end of this meeting. No. 4 Fate Trojan, Channel Administrator, please show respect for the deities. No. 7326 Detective, we should reflect on why we have so many enemies, and why we are enemies with Kotar instead of friends. No. 8961 Provoker, why even reflect? Just think with your toes and you'll know it's those idiots from the thief pathway who caused it. No. 43 The Parasite, without us, there wouldn't be any of you. Where are you? Give me your address, I challenge you to a duel. No. 8961 Provoker, you, a mighty sequence 4 demigod, bullying a mere sequence 8 like me, is that fair? No. 16 Mentor of Deceit, number 8961, your Provoker potion is being digested quite well. But I'd like to point out that the umbral demonic wolf Kotar became our enemy 3000 years ago. Back then, we followed our father and exterminated the demonic wolf race, incurring Kotar's hatred. This is a fact that no amount of foolish reflection or provocation can change. No. 9521 Archaeologist, number 16, you know so much. My potion digested a chunk just from that. Does anyone have the appraiser potion formula? No. 4 Fate Trojan, Channel Administrator, formulas are available, and potions will be too. I have already fulfilled the wishes of all who wanted to return to the Forsaken Land of the Gods. Those who remain are willing to continue lurking in the Land of Betrayal. We need to grasp more information to deal with future changes. No. 4 Fate Trojan, Channel Administrator, we must seize the opportunity and strike with full force. No. 16 Mentor of Deceit, just say what needs to be done directly. Right now, you're the only angel left here. No. 4 Fate Trojan, Channel Administrator, number 9998, your mission is to enter Backland within 1 month and obtain the recent movements of the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Church of Storms. I have given you everything you need. If you fail to complete the task, I will reclaim it all. No. 4 Fake Trojan, Channel Administrator, number 9521, pray to me after the meeting concludes. I will give you the next action plan and potion formula. This meeting is now adjourned. The monocle vanished from before Li Meng's eyes, and the basement returned to complete silence. Li Meng suddenly realized that most of those who had spoken most actively during the last meeting held in the land of betrayal were no longer present. He didn't know if number 4 hadn't notified them, if they had already left the forsaken land of the gods, or if they had vanished from this world entirely. An immense pressure suddenly weighed on Li Meng's heart, just like when he first awakened in the forsaken land of the gods and faced that mysterious monster, filled with ignorance about the dangers of this world. After pondering for a moment, Li Meng still boarded the public carriage bound for 77 Salmon Street. From the outside, the houses on Salmon Street showed no obvious difference from those on Middle 3rd Street. Only upon entering could one feel their opulence. As soon as he stepped through the main door, Li Meng was astonished by the countless ancient oil paintings hanging in the hall and their exquisitely decorated frames. Any single painting here could be sold as a 4th-era artifact among Backland's great nobles. The floor was covered with gleaming golden floorboards and thick woolen carpets. In the center of the hall stood a long table that could seat 12 people, surrounded by luxurious high-backed chairs. At the edges of the hall were gold-inlaid furniture, marble sculptures, coffee tables holding books and newspapers, and lambskin sofas. Seeing Li Meng's astonished expression, Mr. Locke Laval, still shrouded in a black robe and wearing a whale mask, seemed quite pleased. Emperor Roussel once said that the impression between people mostly comes from the first impression. Well, although his novels are nonsensical and illogical, and the machines he invented are useless except for creating pollution, there is some truth to this saying. A true noble should possess a long history, a rich culture, elegant manners, impeccable etiquette, and a modest amount of wealth, just enough for a comfortable life. It is such a foolish act that the short-sighted nobles and the king of the kingdom actually allow those upstarts to purchase titles with money. Would you like something to drink? It's been a long time since we've had guests. I've almost forgotten those etiquettes. From the moment Li Meng entered, Mr. Locke seemed to lose the calm composure he had shown when going to Black Abyss Castle and began to appear somewhat flustered. He somewhat hastily found a gold-threaded cup, rinsed off the thick layer of dust inside, and started rummaging through various gold and silver-inlaid cabinets. You need a maid and a personal butler. Your wealth is more than sufficient to cover these expenses. Mr. Locke's entire body seemed to tremble as if shocked by electricity. No, absolutely not. They are all thieves and swindlers. They will only steal your belongings when you're not paying attention, or even plot to kill you and take all your wealth. That's overly paranoid, isn't it? There aren't that many bad people in the world. Li Meng found it both amusing and exasperating, feeling that this Mr. Locke seemed to suffer from persecution paranoia. No, you don't know. Nothing and no one in the world can escape my eyes. Once I hired a maid. When she saw the valuables, the greed and desire she displayed even frightened me. Although she hinted many times that she could offer more and do better, I firmly drove her away. Since then, I have never hired anyone again. I don't even dare go out casually, afraid of seeing those terrifying and evil desires, afraid of seeing those kind and pure souls, afraid of seeing the malice revealed in people's every move. Li Meng fell silent for a moment, then suddenly asked curiously, "Then why did you let me in?" Mr. Locke seemed to have anticipated this question. He placed a cup of deep red liquid in front of Li Meng. "Drink this, and I'll tell you the answer." Li Meng frowned, thought for a moment, then held his breath and drank it down in one gulp. Red wine with honey. This Mr. Locke has a truly peculiar taste. From a very young age, I could clearly see with my eyes the malice revealed in others' every move, see the deceit hidden behind smiles, see the cruelty revealed in seemingly ordinary actions. My father, Baron Laval, once took me to the Church of the Goddess of Night and met Archbishop Ince Zangwill of the Diocese of Dizzy. He sighed and said I was a natural-born spectator, a pity. Baron Laval was a stubborn and unreasonable man. He insisted this was an illness that needed treatment. He made me take many strange medicines and meet many people with ulterior motives. Their malice tormented my spirit, making me appear even more ill. In the end, he successfully exhausted the family's entire fortune and committed suicide on a stormy night. After that, I was completely free. I sold the property and estate my father left behind and went to Backland. There, I finally understood what natural-born spectator meant, and I also came into contact with many people who claimed they could solve this problem. Unfortunately, they forgot I was a natural-born spectator and could see their fraudulent acts clearly. Those frauds became unbearable. During a trip, I discovered this place and settled down here. I thought my life would continue like this, until I saw you at the door just now. Chapter 38. I have been healed. Chapter 38. I have been healed. Please bookmark, please recommend. Although you also carry a conspicuous scent of deceit, it's still barely within the range I can tolerate. Most importantly, my observation tells me that your deceit is about making me pay an extra price, rather than pure deception. This indicates the problem can be resolved, and you seem quite confident, which further validates my conjecture. Of course, the most important thing was that glass of wine. Although it was just red wine with honey added, it makes one harder to control their own movements, thereby revealing more observable details. I certainly wouldn't tell you that I secretly activated the hypnotist's psychotherapy to treat you a little, making me appear trustworthy. Li Meng complained inwardly while putting on a puzzled expression. Is the scent of deceit really that obvious? Is it a standard feature for all of Amon's avatars, or is the other party's observational ability too sharp? Li Meng suppressed the urge to continue treating the other party. Although the hypnotist's Beander characteristic belonged to the spectator pathway at sequence 6, the spectator pathway didn't seem to have a strong high-level suppression effect. Everything depended on both parties' mastery of their own Beander abilities. Using it too much might truly be detected by this natural-born spectator. Yes, I can help you solve these problems, but they will certainly cost money. I'm not that kind of philanthropist. For £200, I can tell you some essential knowledge about Beander pathways and how to escape your current predicament. For an additional £200, I can tell you the spectator's potion formula. If you pay £850, I can tell you the potion formulas for higher sequences on the spectator pathway. Of course, all of this must be kept confidential. Alright, although the malice on you has grown stronger, I've still decided to proceed with this transaction. I'll choose the most expensive option. If it can successfully resolve the issues on me, then I can give you more. Seeing Li Meng's puzzled gaze, Lok Laval, tightly wrapped in a black robe, seemed somewhat pleased, the robe trembling slightly. There are always fools trying to deceive me, but I can take their bait, stay away from their traps, and inflict some small punishments on them. I will always be Mr. Lok's best friend. I believe we both have a bright future. You don't need to explain the source of your money to me. I'm only interested in your pounds, not in how you got them. As Li Meng spoke, he took out the No. 9998 Scholars book from his embrace. Why has your scent of deceit increased again? I can feel a clear sense of malice. That must be your illusion. Our friendship can withstand the test of time. As he spoke, Li Meng secretly activated psychotherapy. Then, while guaranteeing not to leak the source, can I sell the formula to others? Locke asked curiously while shaking his head. Of course, once you buy it, it's yours. You only need to keep the source confidential. Li Meng nodded affirmatively and very naturally opened the Scholar's book No. 9998. Since advancing to listener, Li Meng had gained further mastery over this book. Specifically, he could now change the pattern on the cover and the color of the binding. Now the book's cover had turned a golden yellow, the entire tome as if cast from gold. In the very center was engraved a bright red fireball, surrounded by a circle of outward radiating lines, looking like a sun emitting infinite light and heat in all directions. Yes, are you ready? I need to first determine your current state. This requires a drop of your blood. Li Meng held the book with both hands, appearing utterly sacred. As a drop of blood dripped from Locke's hand and vanished upon the page, Li Meng saw a brand new directory appear in the book. As his finger moved, the pages flipped rapidly, and a line of white text appeared in the middle of the page. Sequence 9, Spectator. This was a new function Li Meng had developed for the No. 9998 Scholars book, a basic, simple bloodline identification spell. With just a drop of blood, it could check the target's current sequence. You need a telepathist potion formula. Once you fully master it, you can completely eliminate this pain of seeing everyone as a villain. As he spoke, Li Meng loudly recited an incantation no one could understand. Spirituality was injected into the hypnotist's soul on his ring finger. Li Meng saw gray mist surge before his eyes, revealing layers of stairs extending downwards with no end in sight. As spirituality was poured in, his gaze descended step by step. The surroundings grew quieter and quieter, so quiet it induced auditory hallucinations. Here, apart from gray mist, there was only more gray mist. Nothing else could be seen, lonely and unknown. Howling gales blew from constantly shifting directions, making Li Meng's body sway as a sense of fear slowly deepened. He continued probing downwards. Dozens of seconds later, a point of light suddenly ignited within the surrounding gray mist. Li Meng directed his attention towards the light point. It instantly transformed into a series of phantoms, passing before Li Meng like a revolving lantern. Those phantoms all appeared as a blurry human figure. Li Meng knew that was the image of Locke's mind. Among those phantoms, there was Locke as an infant, being cared for by an impatient servant, desperately stifling his mouth to prevent crying. There was Locke who had already learned to walk, being taken to church for prayer, witnessing the madness of the bishop and the believers. There was Locke who had learned silence amidst malice, being taken to see in Zangwil, witnessing the other's greedy gaze. There were scenes of groups of people, all carrying cunning and deceitful auras, deliberately guiding Baron Lovell to purchase various useless, even harmful medicines. There were images of a servant woman with a cruel smile, serving food to Baron Lovell. Scene after scene flashed by, finally freezing on the image of Baron Lovell collapsing weakly on the bed, completely losing his breath, while the servants took everything portable from the castle and vanished completely. Naturally able to see through people's hearts, yet powerless to change anything, and with no one to understand, thus accumulating too much malice in the heart. Watching the broken images of Locke flash by, Li Meng sighed. The hypnotist's soul injected a large amount of spirituality, completely erasing those shattered images. Locke only felt a sudden lightness all over, as if something important had been lost. Immediately after, he looked up at Li Meng and saw him radiating pure light from head to toe, holding a golden holy scripture with both hands. The entire person was filled with benevolence and kindness, like an angel walking the earth. Waves of goodwill and warmth emanated from Li Meng, illuminating the entire empty hall. The goodwill and warmth were so intense that it made Locke feel the wretchedness and insignificance beneath his own black robe. Ah, I have been healed. I now feel full of strength from head to toe. The world is so kind, so beautiful, yet I could only see its ugly side before. I was truly sick before, and now I have been healed. Locke excitedly raised his arms as if to embrace the world. Chapter 39, Do Not Look. Li Meng repeatedly declined Locke Lovell's request to give him all his property. He only took the £850 in cash that belonged to him, handed the slip of paper with the telepathous potion formula to Locke Lovell, and informed him of the acting method and the precautions for digesting the potion. The condition for entering the Black Abyss Castle isn't something I can decide, it's entirely up to that strange coachman, Locke Lovell explained to Li Meng while starting to search the room for a mask. No need. I've kept the mask you gave me last time with me all along. Li Meng retrieved the dragon bone fish mask from his person, put it on, and followed Locke Lovell out the main door. It's almost 7:30. We need to wait at the entrance. That coachman is extremely punctual, never arriving a second early, and certainly never a second late. Locke Lovell walked out the main door, glanced to the right at number 78, then locked the door, exited the courtyard, and went with Li Meng to wait across the street. Whether we can enter the Black Abyss Castle depends entirely on whether the coachman stops. If he stops, it means we can enter. This coachman is very odd. I've rarely heard him speak, and I can't sense any goodwill or malice from him. As soon as they sat down in the carriage, Locke Lovell seemed intent on telling Li Meng everything he knew, launching into a torrent of explanations. It was half a year ago, one night. I discovered that carriage at the courtyard entrance. The coachman gestured for me to get in. I didn't sense any malice, so I got right on, and then I arrived at that mysterious castle. I later learned it was the Black Abyss Castle. I suspect only Beyonders can enter. Unfortunately, I didn't find a potion formula suitable for me. All the items they sell carry various kinds of malice. As the two exchanged information, time flew by, and the carriage abruptly stopped. Li Meng jumped off the carriage and found it was the same small courtyard he had come to last time. While he was inspecting the courtyard, the coachman drove the carriage and vanished. Passing through the familiar underground passage and pushing open the heavy stone door, Li Meng once again saw that familiar castle. On his first visit, Li Meng hadn't carefully observed the place, having hurriedly followed Mr. Lok Laval inside. This time, he quietly activated his decryption ability, intending to observe the castle with his spiritual vision. At that moment, Li Meng's spirituality suddenly surged wildly. His entire body began to stiffen, and increasingly intense thoughts flashed through his mind. Do not look. Do not look. Do not look. You will die. If you see it, you will die. If you see it, you will die. Li Meng stood frozen in place like a statue, a dense layer of cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. It was as if he had experienced the deepest, most profound nightmare, nearly unable to wake from it. Suddenly, he understood something. The reason he hadn't thought to use his Beyonder abilities to observe the castle last time, habitually walking straight in, wasn't because he forgot to be cautious. It was because he had been guided by some force, causing him to overlook that step. Back then, Li Meng hadn't yet advanced to Sequence 8. His spirituality would have had difficulty detecting such guidance, just like instinctively performing a habitual action, one wouldn't pay it much mind. But now, the spiritual warning based on his listener's premonition was so clear, so obvious. This castle was definitely not right. To be able to silently guide so many people inside, to make one's own spirituality tremble with fear, even to the point of not daring to look directly, this was absolutely the presence of a high-sequence entity. Seeing Li Meng still standing there dazed, Lok Laval tugged on the sleeve of Li Meng's black robe and said curiously, "What are you waiting for? What's so interesting about this? Don't you find it strange?" Li Meng retorted with a face full of confusion. Of course it's strange, but isn't that how the Beyonder world should be? Full of mystery, full of the unknown, full of the bizarre. Hearing Lok Laval's own confused retort, Li Meng knew the other likely didn't understand his meaning. He didn't say more and directly entered the first-floor hall. The hall was still bustling with familiar comings and goings. Li Meng looked over each of the stone slabs hanging on the walls all around, finding nothing he needed. Li Meng walked towards the very center of the room. He discovered the messy handwriting on the stone slab had been wiped away, replaced by rows of neatly written Hermes language. Wanted, Manipulator, Unshadowed, Prophet, Cataclysmic Enterer, Black Knight Potion Formulas, Powerful Offensive Sealed Artifacts, any mythical creature remains, any physical astral world entities. For sale, telepathist, psychiatrist, hypnotist, dreamwalker formulas, and some main ingredients. Below the red text, there were white characters indicating the prices. Telepathist £600, psychiatrist £2,000, hypnotist £4,200, dreamwalker £12,000. Getting more and more expensive. I wonder who wrote this. It feels like they have no intention of actually selling anything. After observing for a moment, Li Meng noticed Lok Laval was also looking at this text. After a long pause, Lok Laval finally spoke in a quiet voice. This world truly is full of kindness. The price you gave me was simply too low. I feel the same way. Could you compensate me for the difference? My dear friend, I'd like to do that, but just now, I already gave you all the money I could find. Lok Laval spread his hands open, speaking helplessly. Facing Lok Laval's pure and flawless gaze, Li Meng suddenly felt he shouldn't have purified him so thoroughly back then. Now, he couldn't immediately tell if the other was being sincere or sarcastic, or perhaps sincerely sarcastic. A private small dock in Tiana Port District. A small dugout canoe quietly approached the dock. Alger Wilson, clad entirely in black robes, leapt lightly from the canoe into the water. When he reappeared, he was already in the shadow of an Intis plane tree. A person similarly wrapped in black robes stood in the shadows, seemingly having waited a long time. Praise the storm. Praise the storm. Following the extremely soft prayers, the two swiftly vanished into the shadows. In the Hall family castle in Backland Queen District, Audrey Hall, dressed in full formal attire, had now grown accustomed to staying away from the lively crowd, observing everything before her alone. My potion has already begun to digest. I need to prepare the Sequence 8 formula and materials. Thanks to the Hanged Man's erudition and generosity. I wonder how much money this will cost. Oh, and the great fool. Without him, we wouldn't have such trading opportunities. If not for Susie's interruptions, I think I could digest it faster. The hanged man was right. Compared to humans, animals are natural actors, they are the true masters of potions. What am I thinking? I must finish digesting my potion before Susie does, or I'll be laughed at by a dog, especially a dog on the spectator pathway. Why did I ever think of feeding a dog a potion? Was it because I had too much money? Recalling the hanged man's tone of voice, I have reason to believe he did it on purpose. But what benefit could he gain from that? Chapter 40, number 9521. Just as Li Meng and Locke were examining the text on the stone slabs in the first-floor hall, a black-robed figure wearing a shark mask suddenly descended from the second-floor staircase. These attendant of Black Abyss Castle hold the authority to invite others to the second floor. They seem different from the gatekeepers or the coach-driving attendant, they feel more dangerous. I've seen them execute traitors who attempted to violate the order, swiftly and brutally. Locke was quietly explaining the origins of these attendant when he saw the black-robed figure with the shark mask glance around and quickly lock onto Li Meng. The black-robed figure approached Li Meng, slightly bowed, and spoke in a low, hoarse voice like that of a dying old man. Honored guest, the master invites you to the second floor. Near Bayham Port, the Barnacles and Seaweed ship repair yard. A group of dockworkers dressed in tattered clothes were wielding iron shovels and crowbars nearly half a person's height, vigorously scraping away at an overturned wooden sailing ship. The sailing ship was about 10 meters long, its hull densely covered with barnacles, seaweed, oysters, mussels, and other marine parasites clinging to it like living tumors, evoking a sense of dread. The intense Bayham sunlight beat down on the workers, tanning their faces and exposed skin to a dark, glossy sheen. Sweat poured from their foreheads and noses, but they were too busy to even wipe it away. Not far away, a foreman in a brown jacket, his face rough and menacing, wandered around, his eyes darting over the workers like a victim searching a crowd for his stolen pounds. After circling the overturned wooden sailing ship for a while, the foreman suddenly cracked his whip, producing a loud crack that made the surrounding workers turn their heads. Seeing the workers' eyes on him, the foreman in the brown jacket jumped onto an overturned large metal barrel, raised his voice, and shouted, "Work faster today. This is an important client. If the barnacles and seaweed aren't cleaned off this ship before dark, none of you will eat." The workers responded with weak, dispirited murmurs before sluggishly dispersing. Satisfied, the foreman wandered around for a bit, then approached a young man working diligently, patting his grimy shoulder with slight disdain. The young man had typical Loan features: black hair, brown eyes, a slender build, ordinary facial features, but robust and powerful limbs that made him appear exceptionally lean. Of course, the most striking feature was the pair of black-framed glasses he wore, covered in cracks and dark stains. "Xiao Dixie, not bad work. Keep it up, and I'll add an extra penny to your pay this week." Having said that, the foreman seemed unsatisfied and raised his voice again, shouting loudly. "Look at Xiao Dixie, how diligently he works. Now look at yourselves, do you deserve that one sol? If I catch anyone slacking off again, they won't get even a penny." Under everyone's gaze, the young man Xiao Dixie seemed a bit shy and raised his rough, large hand to scratch the back of his head. "What are you doing? Get back to work. Don't think you can slack off just because I praised you." The foreman seemed to have anticipated Xiao Dixie's next move and scolded him loudly. Xiao Dixie gave a simple, honest smile, picked up the heavy iron shovel from the ground, and continued scraping diligently at the ship's hull. The barnacles were firmly attached, and he had to exert all his strength to barely pry them off. It wasn't until sunset that the workers finally cleaned the hull, then rolled out barrels of pungent, orange-red paint from the warehouse and evenly applied it to the ship's bottom. Xiao Dixie, caught in the middle, was covered in red paint from head to toe, emitting an unpleasant odor. Gritting his teeth, he continued working until the crimson moon rose to mid-sky. Only then did he throw down his tools and leave the repair yard last, following the small path behind the ship repair yard used by workers. He walked further and further into seclusion until he reached an uninhabited dense forest. The young man took out 4 candles, each less than a centimeter long, from the pocket of his tattered formal suit, carefully lit them with a match, and began reciting softly through choked sobs amid the rising wisps of smoke. "The pointer that plucks the threads of time. The shadow that roams the paths of fate. The embodiment of deceit and mischief. The great son of the Creator. The diligent and responsible channel administrator. The fair and wise number 4 clone. Before his eyes, strands of bluish-black mist began to appear. A massive, ancient palace gradually materialized from the mist, its walls adorned with a huge bluish-black wall clock. The palace gates stood wide open, revealing inside the seated number 4 clone, dressed in classical black robes, wearing a pointed soft hat, with black curly hair, black eyes, a broad forehead, thin cheeks, and a monocle over one eye. "Great Lord, please take me away. I can't bear it anymore," the young man cried out, his voice choked with tears. Number 9521, what's wrong? Number 4 remained silent for a moment before his low voice slowly emerged. "I have always followed your instructions, lurking in the barnacles and seaweed ship repair yard. But now, the work here is truly exhausting. I can't hold on any longer. I feel like I'm about to return to the embrace of the primordial one." "But why are you working so hard?" Number 4 asked, puzzled. Hearing this question, No 9521's voice began to tremble with sobs. "Initially, following your command, I went undercover at the ship repair yard. But not long after, the factory owner said I couldn't read customers' expressions and wasn't fit for customer service, so he sent me to the ship repair workshop, paying only 1 sol a week. As per your instructions, I worked hard, striving for a higher position to gather more intelligence. The factory owner told me that if I could do the work of 3 people alone, I could be promoted to workshop supervisor, get a raise to £1 a week, and even have 3 days of paid leave. But no matter how hard I try, I can only manage the workload of 2 workers. The foreman says I work diligently and have a positive attitude, encouraging me to keep it up and offering an extra penny in weekly pay. I truly can't do this anymore. My archaeologist potion has been fully digested. I'm not even asking for the appraiser potion formula anymore. I just want to move somewhere else or return to the forsaken land of the gods." Number 4 remained silent for a long time before finally speaking slowly. "Can't you learn a thing or two from No. 9998? I really don't know why I created you in the first place. Go find number 9998 at this location. While you're at it, use your memory to record everything he does and report it all back to me. I'll let it slide this time, but remember to offer sacrifices when praying to deities in the future." Number 9521 was about to speak when an address appeared in his mind. Immediately after, number 4 vanished. Chapter 41, Tumbleweed. The second floor of the Black Abyss Castle was vastly different from the first floor. Its area was much smaller, and even the surrounding hanging stone slabs had been reduced to 7. Several people wearing black robes and various fish masks sat around the circular table in the center of the hall, waiting quietly. A few others, probably bored from waiting, were looking around at the stone slabs. Li Meng also followed their lead and looked at the first stone slab by the entrance. "Requires the complete blood of a black abyss demon fish. 1 agate peacock egg. Selling Emperor Russell's notes, 9 pages, £70. Requires 1 weeping infant flower. Selling 10 drops of sun essential oil, £20. Selling 10 grams of golden bergamot powder, £5. Selling 10 grams of golden datura juice, £5. 6 crystalline feathers of a blue shadow falcon, £1,500. Marrow crystal from the Fountain of Elves, £350. 1 gold-edged sunflower, £10. 10 grams of mummy bone ash, £30. Li Meng kept looking until the 5th stone slab and found that what was written on it seemed somewhat familiar. Requires 100 milliliters of ghost shark blood. Selling Emperor Russell's notes, 3 pages, £20. Huh, this seems like the materials Audrey used to exchange for the formula during her first trade with Alger. Seeing the chalk in the box below the stone slab, Li Meng picked up a complete piece and was about to make a mark on it when a black-robed man who had been sitting quietly at the round table walked over. "Do you have ghost shark blood?" The black-robed man deliberately lowered his voice, making it sound very old, but it was impossible to hide from Li Meng's power of decryption. He's at most 40 years old, has a local accent, and is very likely to be Alger. Li Meng didn't answer but instead asked in a firm tone. £650, I'll bring it next time we meet. If you can pay more pounds, I can tell you some more valuable information. The black-robed man paused slightly and continued in his old voice. All right, what is the more valuable information you're referring to? Information that will allow you to master potions faster, advance more stably, and better resist the negative effects of potions. I will decide how much to tell you based on how much you pay. Good, I hope to complete this transaction as soon as possible. After speaking, the black-robed man returned to his seat at the round table and sat down. Li Meng found a piece of chalk and wrote down his own requirements in the gaps on the stone slab. Requires 1 shadow ghost rabbit head, 650 pounds. Requires 1 adult tumbleweed, 650 pounds. Requires 10 grams of tumbleweed seeds, 5 pounds. Selling melee scholar formula, 450 pounds. It wasn't that Li Meng didn't want to write more formulas, but this place always gave him an uncomfortable feeling, so he could only try selling one formula first to test the waters. After writing everything in one go, Li Meng also imitated those black-robed men and sat down at the circular table in the center of the hall, quietly waiting for others' messages. Seeing that there were new updates, the surrounding black-robed men took turns going over to look, but soon shook their heads and returned. Everyone sat silently in the hall again, as if competing to see who could be quieter. Just as Li Meng thought there would be no harvest today, another black-robed man walked up from the stairs, wearing a huge seashell mask. 2 small holes were carved in the center of the shell, revealing a pair of round, beady eyes that looked quite comical. The black-robed man wearing the huge seashell mask looked over the stone slabs on the second floor row by row, seemingly unsatisfied with all of them. He finally stopped in front of the words Li Meng had written, pausing for a moment as if pondering something. Just as he picked up the chalk to write, he found Li Meng already standing in front of him. Do you have the materials listed here? 1 adult tumbleweed, plus 20 grams of seeds, 800 pounds. So expensive. I just earned 850 pounds from Locke this morning, and now I have to spend it all so quickly. Li Meng was starting to suspect that he was cursed. Every time money came into his hands, it couldn't stay, it had to be spent immediately for him to feel at ease. As if sensing Li Meng's doubt, the black-robed man wearing the seashell mask spoke in a hoarse voice. Tumbleweeds are found all over the continent and the ocean, but they are extremely difficult to capture, especially adult ones. They can sense the unusual odors brought by predators in the air and quickly drive the surrounding winds to carry them away. Once they move away from the gaze of living beings, they quickly hide and ride the wind to unknown lands. I chased this tumbleweed for 10 days and 10 nights, from Nas Island to Tiana, before I caught it. If I didn't possess special skills, it would have escaped long ago. If I took it to Backland, I could definitely sell it for a higher price, but I don't really want to deal with those people. The black-robed man pulled out a black bag from within his wide robe. Inside the bag, something seemed to be constantly rolling, forming bubbles. You can go to a room to appraise it, but you'll have to pay the 20-pound appraisal fee. The black-robed man slapped the bag twice and whispered. Tumbleweeds fear the scent of any human or carnivorous animal and love to hide in places without sunlight. So you'd better not open the bag casually, or you'll lose it immediately. No need, I believe you. Li Meng secretly used the hypnotist ability from his glove and found that the other party was not lying. Before using it to make materials, you must strike it hard to make it lose vitality temporarily. This will probably keep it quiet for about 10 seconds. If it comes into contact with wind, its recovery time will be even shorter. Without wind and freedom, it can survive for at most 10 more days. You need to hurry, its spirituality has already started to fade. Gritting his teeth, Li Meng took out the 800 pounds he had earned that very afternoon, handed it to the black-robed man wearing the seashell mask, took the bag, and walked down the stairs. On the first floor, Locke had also bought some materials and was sitting on the sofa observing his surroundings. Seeing Li Meng come down, he immediately followed. Let's go. By the time Li Meng returned to 15 Swordfish Street, it was already late at night, and the whole street was as quiet as if it were asleep. The money on him had instantly turned into materials, carried in various large and small packages. I have 60 milliliters of pure water. The blood of any corrupted creature can be used from what's left over last time. I bought the adult tumbleweed and seeds this time. I still have 10 grams of black gemstone powder on hand. Now I'm only missing the shadow ghost rabbit head. I need to hurry, or the adult tumbleweed's spirituality will fade, and these 800 pounds will be wasted. Li Meng found a few bags in the basement, layered them one inside another, tying each layer once, wrapping it a full 5 times before feeling at ease to leave the basement. I've been buying extraordinary materials all along, but I never paid attention to where they come from. In the future, I can rely on the characteristics of my glove to specifically search for extraordinary materials. It might have great prospects. Especially since I possess the Scholar's Book number 9998 and am familiar with all Sequence 9 and Sequence 8 potion formulas, I can search for and identify all materials. This is definitely a very promising business. Like today's tumbleweed, 1 plant a month, and 2,000 pounds are in hand. The more Li Meng thought about it, the more feasible it seemed, and he drifted into a hazy sleep late at night. Chapter 42, Wall of Spirituality. Chapter 42, Wall of Spirituality, Seeking Collections, Seeking Recommendations. July. Li Meng woke up from his dream, just as the clock struck 11 in the morning. After washing up, he went to a small restaurant nearby and ordered an 8-penny steak with black pepper sauce, 25-penny mashed potatoes with pork sausage, a 1-penny coffee, 1 penny worth of vegetables, and incidentally spent 2.3 pence on 2 pounds of the cheapest black bread. This familiar taste is so reminiscent of the street food stalls from my previous life. After finishing his meal and when it came time to pay, he took out his wallet and realized that the 850 pounds he had obtained from Mr. Locke, plus the spare change he had left before, now amounted to only 23 pounds, 15 sol, and 11 pence. This was not only due to the significant loss of pounds from purchasing the tumbleweed but also because he was curious about the additional rituals recorded in the Scholar's Book number 9998 and planned to try them out. In particular, he felt it was very necessary to practice rituals like the Wall of Spirituality and the Flames of Corruption repeatedly, to facilitate his future wealth accumulation and travels. After finishing breakfast, as soon as Li Meng opened the door to the basement, he saw the bag containing the tumbleweed rolling back and forth on the ground. Sensing the morning breeze after the door opened, it immediately floated up, trying to rush out the door. This little thing is quite spirited. If it weren't necessary for the potion formula, I might consider keeping it as a pet. Using his abilities as a dream stealer, Li Meng instantly grabbed the rope tied to the bag, allowing the tumbleweed to float frantically. After struggling for a while, the tumbleweed in the bag seemed to realize it was futile and instantly gave up, falling to the ground with a thud. Li Meng picked up a brick from the basement and placed it on the bag's opening, then gently kicked it. The tumbleweed seemed to have given up struggling, showing no reaction at all. Only after confirming that the tumbleweed would no longer roll around did Li Meng feel at ease. He locked the basement door from the inside, took out the Scholar's Book number 9998, and repeatedly read aloud the steps of the ritual he was about to perform. Carefully, he took out the materials he had bought the night before from a fish skin pouch and began his attempt at the Wall of Spirituality. Although Li Meng clearly knew that this ritual could not block the full summoning, it could shield against normal level beyonders, especially other avatars of Amon. This was very necessary for his future actions. He picked up 4 candles and placed them at the 4 corners of the only table in the basement. After some thought, Li Meng found a large red curtain and draped it over the wall clock symbolizing number 4. Finally, feeling it was too glaring, he moved the clock to the corner of the wall and covered the curtain with another layer of thick felt. Coarse black bread in the upper left, dried black bread in the upper right, black bread mixed with sawdust in the lower left, and black bread mixed with sawdust and small stones in the lower right. Following the description in the Scholar's Book No. 9998, Li Meng meticulously set up the altar, recalling the original text from the book in the process. The more precious the food, the better it pleases the gods. After making preparations, he lit the 4 candles one by one, picked up a small copper knife, and inserted it into the pile of coarse salt. After reciting the Hermes language sanctification incantation, Li Meng took out the small knife with patches of copper rust and placed it into a cup filled with clear water. Gathering his focus, he withdrew this copper, sacred blade, visualizing the scene of spirituality spreading and bursting forth from the tip of the knife. An invisible force surged outward. Holding the small knife, Li Meng walked around the altar once and felt that a wall of spirituality had indeed been erected around him, excluding all impurities and disturbances. He put on the HLKT necklace, to maintain the state of a listener, put down the small copper knife, and picked up a transparent glass bottle, a bottle of perfume he had incidentally bought at the underwater market. According to the seller, it was an authentic perfume infused with barley, wheat, malt, and grains, carrying the fresh scent of nature. 5 pence a bottle, and it does have a food-like fragrance. Li Meng took a sniff and was surprised to find it wasn't too unpleasant. Carefully, he dripped a drop onto each candle. A faint fragrance spread continuously, and Li Meng felt as if his body, mind, and spirit had momentarily found peace. This method must be very effective for treating insomnia. In this tranquil environment, Li Meng opened the Scholar's Book number 9998 and found that his mind seemed to have become more agile, greatly improving his learning efficiency. For beyonders of the faceless pathway, they often suffer from the creator's voice pollution. Even for someone like Li Meng, who is almost completely isolated from the true creator's voice, the madness contained within the potion can cause mental torment, making it impossible to rest properly. The wall of spirituality ritual is undoubtedly a blessing for those on the faceless pathway. Taking advantage of the wall of spirituality still being maintained, Li Meng repeatedly copied all the potion formulas and rituals that could potentially be sold with a pen until he had memorized them. How much I can earn today depends on these formulas. While memorizing the potion formulas, Li Meng reapplied perfume to the candles several times until they were about to burn out. He took out his pocket watch and checked the time. It was almost 3 in the afternoon. After some thought, Li Meng returned to his bedroom on the second floor, lay down on the bed, drew the curtains, and covered himself with the blanket. Meetings and such are too tiring. It's much more comfortable to just lie down. As the familiar crimson burst forth from his body, the blanket, and the pillow, Li Meng's vision instantly blurred. When he regained clarity, he found himself atop the giant king's court, shrouded in gray mist. Mr. Fool, Klein, as before, lightly tapped the edge of the long table 3 times with his fingers and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Miss Justice, you are now a Beander." Could he see it directly? Audrey was taken aback for a moment, then smiled faintly and said, thank you, Mr. Fool, and thank you, Mr. Hanged Man." "Just as I imagined," Li Meng replied absent-mindedly while secretly grumbling to himself. "This isn't following the procedure. Shouldn't Miss Justice greet first?" Klein didn't continue with this topic. He tapped his forehead and said with a smile, "Ladies and gentlemen, have any of you found Russell's diary?" Upon hearing the fool's question, Audrey didn't answer immediately as she had before. Instead, she opened her crystal-clear eyes and glanced at the hanged man with a scrutinizing gaze. "Ah, as expected, this is very, spectator. I really should have sold Audrey the assassin or hunter potion back then." Li Meng felt as if he had lifted a rock only to drop it on his own foot. Now, with a spectator possessing outstanding mental acuity and keen observation, a Klein pretending to be a mysterious big shot, and Li Meng himself, an avatar of Amon. Observing each other, guarding against each other, deceiving each other, and harming each other, acting in such a setting is like playing on the hardest difficulty. If one day someone's act falls apart, the scene would be unimaginable. In the future, I must find a way to recruit a hot-tempered guy or gal to draw fire. Otherwise, continuing to act like this will create too much mental pressure, and I'm bound to lose a lot of hair. The most crucial point is that Li Meng has no talent for acting. Although, as an avatar of Amon, he inherently possesses the authority of deception, not every avatar is adept at it. Among them, there are those like number 23, who seem more suited to the arbiter pathway, and others whose minds are not sharp at all. Deception is both an authority contained within the potion and a talent. Chapter 43, I Want Both. We can. Read anytime. Li Meng restrained his body movements, remained silent for a few seconds, and then spoke. "I have discovered clues to 2 pages of Emperor Russell's diary. I will present them to you at the next gathering. Asterisk, caret, asterisk, underscore, asterisk, asterisk, underscore, asterisk, caret, asterisk." He resolved to speak less and move less in the future, trying not to expose too much in front of Miss Justice. "I have 1 page." Audrey, whose vision was veiled by the gray mist, replied in a tone of detached observation. Very good. Mr. Fool, Klein Moretti, did not let his delight and disappointment color his voice. It seems Klein has also realized Audrey's spectator abilities. One potion has ensnared two actors. Li Meng thought with ill intent, his body still sitting expressionlessly. Shall I express it now? Audrey inquired calmly. Yes. Mr. Fool maintained his previous posture, making almost no change, merely nodding succinctly. As his words fell, a sheet of yellowish-brown parchment and a dark red fountain pen instantly materialized before Audrey. In less than a minute, Audrey completed the written transcription of Russell's diary. The spectator pathway provides a significant boost to memory. For those who haven't systematically studied them, Chinese characters are like images. An ordinary person cannot memorize them in a structured way, only copy them through pictorial imitation. Li Meng watched Miss Justice's pen fly across the page, filling an entire sheet before flipping it over to write on the back. When Miss Justice finished writing, the paper vanished instantly, reappearing the next second before Mr. Fool. Afterwards, the two sat quietly, watching Klein read that page of the diary. Not long after, Klein looked up at Justice and the hanged man, smiling slightly. My apologies, I was captivated. Audrey smoothed over the envy in her heart and replied with a calm smile. I can understand. I look forward to the day when I can exchange for the contents of Emperor Russell's diary from you. That would require payment, Klein said with a smile, glancing at Justice and sweeping his gaze over the silent hanged man. Audrey clasped her hands together before her and said, Mr. Fool, Mr. Hanged Man, I have 3 questions I'd like to ask. If you deem the answers to be of high value, please tell me what you desire, and I will do my best to find them afterwards. No problem, Li Meng replied simply and steadily. Klein nodded gently, leaning back more comfortably. Audrey thought for a few seconds and said, the first question, what exactly does acting mean? I've found that the residual spirit within the potion affects me very little. Is it because I've been acting as a spectator during this time? Li Meng did not speak, turning his gaze toward the fool, as if also awaiting an explanation. Klein lightly tapped the edge of the long table with his fingers and began explaining the castle guard theory in a relaxed tone, continuing all the way to the invitation letter for entering the castle. Li Meng, seizing the right moment, asked a prepared question in return. Is that invitation letter the name of the sequence potion? Yes. Klein gave an affirmative reply. Audrey listened, feeling a sudden clarity, as if she completely understood the meaning of acting. Her slightly stirred emotions immediately pulled her out of the spectator state, and she joyfully began to praise the fool. I consider this a very valuable answer. I cannot accept it with peace of mind like this. Mr. Fool, what kind of exchange do you require? More of Russell's diary, or... Mr. Fool paused. Or any information about the Antigonus family, even parts one already know, will suffice. I was waiting for you to say that. Li Meng remained silent for a few seconds first, then looked cautiously toward the head of the bronze long table and spoke slowly. Mr. Fool, then I can pay the reward for your previous answer now. Antigonus is an ancient family, active in history at least since the 4th epoch. They controlled the seer pathway, employing various bizarre spells and rituals. Due to their support for the Blood Emperor, Alista Tudor, during the War of the 4 Emperors, they were exterminated by the Church of the Goddess of Night, which supported Truncest after Tudor's defeat. Mr. Fool, if you wish to know more, I'm afraid you can only obtain it from the Church of the Night, or by contacting those few ancient secret organizations. You know which ones I'm referring to. After speaking, Li Meng closed his mouth and waited quietly for Mr. Fool's response. I don't know. Klein thought bitterly to himself, nodding. Klein knew the hanged man knew, and he knew Mr. Fool should know, so he could only speak in a low, slow voice. Very good. I am quite satisfied with this payment. It is my honor. Li Meng's face showed an expression of being overwhelmed by favor. Although his features were obscured by the mist, it was better to remain cautious in front of a spectator. Audrey glanced at the hanged man, then at the fool, and said with a light smile. Then I'll ask my second question. What are the subsequent potions for the spectator called, and where can clues to them be found? Under Mr. Fool's gaze that seemed to say, I'll test you, Li Meng thought for a moment before speaking slowly. The potion name for sequence 8 of the spectator pathway is telepathos. The telepathos is a comprehensive enhancement of the spectator. Their observation is no longer limited to surface details but extends into mystical realms like auras and etheric bodies. The combination of these allows the telepathos to grasp a person's mind with exceptional accuracy, seemingly able to read the other's thoughts. Before them, it is difficult to keep secrets. I have 2 proposals here. You can listen to both and then make the choice you desire. That sounds incredibly powerful. How much money do I need to purchase it? Audrey asked, her eyes shining. Li Meng did not answer her question, continuing instead. First, I can give you the names and formulas for the subsequent spectator potions. Currently, I possess all the potion names and formulas for the spectator pathway from sequence 9 to sequence 5. For the sequence 8, telepathos, potion formula, I consider £450 to be a reasonable price. Second, the complete formulas for the spectator pathway are held by the psychology alchemists. You could try obtaining the formulas from them. This piece of information is free, as after-sales service for selling you the potion formula. If you need specific contact information for the psychology alchemists, that entails certain risks and therefore requires some payment. Hearing this, Klein suddenly had a suspicion. The hanged man not only possessed all the potion formulas for the spectator pathway from sequence 9 to sequence 5, but likely also held formulas for other pathways. Audrey puffed her cheeks slightly and immediately made a decision. I want both. Chapter 44, True God. If you need it, I can give you the telepathos formula now. You can collect the ingredients in advance. Su circle upper right quadrant filled lower half circle circle upper right quadrant filled. Su the money can be transferred directly to my anonymous account in Backland. Regarding clues about the Psychology Alchemists members, I can offer you a method. Purchase the telepathos formula at a Beander gathering. A member of the Psychology Alchemists will take the initiative to contact you. This can significantly reduce the possibility of your exposure. If no one contacts you before you take the telepathos potion, I will tell you the contact information for the Psychology Alchemists members. It won't be too late to take the initiative to contact them then. Audrey nodded, indicating that she wanted him to tell her the telepathos potion formula right here, just like last time. The main ingredients are the complete pituitary gland of an adult rainbow salamander and 10 milliliters of Farsman rabbit spinal fluid. Supplementary ingredients: 5 grams of chestnut sprouts, 8 grams of agrimony powder, 3 petals of pure white elf flower, and 100 milliliters of pure water. Due to having taken the spectator potion, Audrey didn't need him to repeat it, she remembered it after hearing it once. She took a breath and said somewhat shyly. The third question: if an ordinary animal drank a sequence 9 potion, what would happen? Just as I expected, the explanation from last time was effective. Li Meng thought while slowly recalling the contents of the scholar's book No. 9998. If an ordinary animal cannot consciously act out the role, or if its behavior doesn't match the potion's name, for example, a curly baboon that takes the Midnight Poet potion, there is a high probability it will die on the spot or collapse into a monster. But if they pull through, they can become Beander creatures. If the potion can improve thinking ability, they might even become intelligent. If it's a Beander creature of the spectator pathway, it's even better, they can not only become smart but also learn to speak with their owner. All right. Audrey let out a silent breath and nodded with a relaxed tone. I have no more questions. Why always use the curly baboon as an example? Is the curly baboon meme popular all over the world? Klein thought with some confusion, deciding not to be the first to use the curly baboon meme at home in the future. Seeing that no one else had questions, Mr. Fool decided to begin his attempt at the leave of absence. I have something, Mr. Fool said with a smile, his posture unchanged. This requires your cooperation. Don't worry, it's a small matter. If it succeeds, it will be very helpful to you. Therefore, I will not pay any extra reward. Please go ahead. Audrey instinctively entered the spectator state, but no matter how she looked, she couldn't see through the thick gray fog surrounding the fool. Following your will, Li Meng said in a deep voice. Klein's fingers moved slightly as he spoke with a smile. I said before that I would make some attempts to allow you to take a leave of absence in advance, so you don't have to worry about what to do if you are in an inappropriate situation on Monday afternoons. That is exactly what we hope for. Audrey's brows smoothed out. Li Meng feigned thought, waited a moment, and then asked back. What do we need to do? You can attempt a ritual magic in your spare time. It doesn't need to be too formal, just an environment where you won't be disturbed. Place 4 new candles on the altar, 1 at each corner. It's best to use the kind with a sandalwood scent. Place a piece of white bread by the top left candle, a serving of fennipote noodles by the top right candle, seafood rice at the bottom left, and a daisy pie at the bottom right. Use a silver knife to create a sealed spirituality environment. Klein described the ritual magic he had modified from the luck enhancement ritual, and taught Miss Justice how to create a spirituality environment for free. Li Meng also asked Mr. Fool for help, manifested a fountain pen, and recorded it diligently. Mix and distill moonflower, golden mint, deep sleep flower, bergamot, and rock rose to extract into essential oils, then add 1 drop to each candle. Audrey listened and recorded with great interest, then asked, what about the incantation? Mr. Fool, what is the corresponding incantation? Li Meng also stopped his pen and turned to look at Mr. Fool. Klein, shrouded in the gray-white fog, tapped his finger lightly on the edge of the long table and answered flatly in Hermes language. The fool that doesn't belong to this era, the mysterious ruler above the gray fog, the king of yellow and black who wields good luck. Hearing this, Li Meng's heart suddenly stirred. He wanted to see what effect reciting those 4 lines of the incantation would have. This thought quickly took root and sprouted in his mind, becoming impossible to shake. I pray for your help. I pray for your favor. I pray for you to grant me a good dream. Deep sleep flower, herb belonging to the red moon, please transmit your power to my incantation. Bergamot, herb belonging to the sun, please transmit your power to my incantation. He finished describing the incantation, which belonged to a different format, and finally smiled. Lady, gentlemen, have you remembered it? Li Meng kept writing with the fountain pen in his hand until Mr. Fool finished. Only then did he widen his eyes and stammer. You are an ancient true god. Just after asking, Li Meng seemed to remember something and quickly lowered his head, looking at the bronze long table. He didn't dare look directly at Mr. Fool, fearing his gaze would profanate a great deity. It's just a ritual. Isn't Mr. Hanged Man overreacting? Or did I overdo the act? Thinking of this, Klein felt a bit uneasy. Although his cheat was incredibly mysterious, it was still far from mysterious existences like the Evernight goddess. A true god, Audrey exclaimed, then immediately covered her mouth tightly, looking at Mr. Fool in disbelief. A few seconds later, she suddenly remembered something and, like Li Meng, lowered her head, not daring to make any direct eye contact. If the 7 gods found out, I would definitely be reduced to ashes. Stay calm. You are a transmigrator, what big scenes haven't you seen? You must stay calm. The Act 1 started, I must see it through to the end. Mr. Fool took 2 deep breaths and, with the concealment of the gray fog, barely managed to calm his emotions. Fortunately, Audrey was too excited upon hearing Mr. Fool's true identity and had directly exited her spectator state. She hadn't been able to re-enter it and didn't notice Mr. Fool's abnormality at all. Klein tapped the table lightly, as if he hadn't heard the Hanged Man's question, and smiled slightly. If this attempt is successful, we can slightly modify the incantation next time to achieve our desired goals. No later than Wednesday, I hope you can find some free time to complete this ritual. As for my identity, you will naturally know in due time. Following your will. Li Meng and Audrey reined in their emotions together, bowing their heads as if facing a true deity. Chapter 45, The Fool Who Does Not Belong to This Era. Honorable Mr. Fool, I will attempt your ritual immediately after this gathering ends. Li Meng answered while weighing his words, looking towards Audrey. I know you have your own channels as well. I need some Beander materials, and you can try to help me purchase them. I need at least 100 milliliters of ghost shark blood and 1 shadow ghost rabbit head. I'm willing to pay 600 to 700 pounds for each material. If you see these materials, you can buy them directly. I will compensate you at the next gathering, or use the funds to purchase other potion formulas of equal value. I remember we have ghost shark blood in the family treasury. I can keep an eye out for the shadow ghost rabbit head for you. Audrey answered with a slightly trembling voice, seemingly not yet recovered from the display of the fool's power. Thinking of this, Li Meng realized that back then, Alger had traded a Sequence 9 formula for one of Audrey's Sequence 7 main potion ingredients. According to market prices, Alger had made a profit of at least £450. This single deal probably earns more than one of Alger's robberies. Li Meng made a mental estimate and finally understood why Alger was so keen on continuing trades with Audrey. As an Amon's avatar possessing the authority of deceit, his trading skills actually paled in comparison to a Beander of the Sailor Pathway. He was truly a disgrace to Amon. According to the Hanged Man's previous suggestion, after official business is the casual chat phase. Who shall begin? Mr. Fool made an inviting gesture. Having suddenly heard the true name of a true god, Audrey's heart could not calm down at all. She could not, and dared not, enter the spectator state, and could only keep staring at the tabletop. Li Meng pondered for a long while, feeling he shouldn't waste this time. Like Audrey, he looked down at the tabletop and spoke slowly. I recently received news that members of the Aurora Order are plotting a massive conspiracy, attempting to use a certain evil ritual to allow the true creator they worship to descend an offspring somewhere within the Loan Kingdom. This news was revealed by an Aurora Order member before his death. An offspring of an evil god is an extremely powerful life form. Even in the mother's womb, it can covertly pollute surrounding creatures, causing them to suffer mental breakdowns and lose control. Even if the mother is an ordinary person who has never encountered Beander phenomena, she can possess Beander power close to Sequence 4. Any stimulus will accelerate the birth of the offspring of an evil god. Once the offspring of an evil god is born, it immediately possesses the strength of a saint, and may even grow into an angel over time. How terrifying! Audrey couldn't help but exclaim. However, she quickly remembered Mr. Fool. This mysterious powerhouse currently sitting at the head of the long bronze table, shrouded in gray fog, was a true deity. You will protect us, right? It will be resolved, Mr. Fool said nonchalantly. The Church of the Seven Gods will definitely resolve it. If even they can't, then whether the Tarot Club still exists would be hard to say. Wait, no one noticed I misspoke. If I find any clues, I can quietly report it to the church. Hearing this, Audrey and Klein lost much of their interest in chatting. They noticed that Mr. Hanged Man always steered the conversation toward high sequence matters, as if he were very familiar with them. Perhaps the Hanged Man is also a hidden saint or angel, that's why he can be so certain of Mr. Fool's identity. Heavens, a demigod is sitting opposite me, and a true god is sitting above. The pressure is so immense. Although Audrey had consumed the spectator potion, no matter how she adjusted her mood now, she simply couldn't enter the spectator state. This Hanged Man is definitely related to a deity, but observing him with spirit vision, he isn't as powerful as I imagined. Could he be a truly ancient powerhouse who is currently awakening, which is why he recognized me as a true god? Could I really be an awakening ancient god, and this is my former divine kingdom? This kind of third-rate novel plot surely wouldn't actually happen to me, right? Klein, what are you thinking? You are Joe Mingrui, a transmigrator from Earth. How could you be a true god? Don't be misled by others. You must be cautious, there must be secrets here I don't know about. Thinking of this, Klein let his gaze sweep over the Hanged Man, and Justice, saying with a smile. If there is nothing else to share, then let today's gathering end here. By your will. Audrey and Li Meng stood up simultaneously. In the Hall family villa in Backland Queen District. Audrey lay on her bed, her head resting on a soft velvet pillow, her eyes staring blankly at the oil painting hanging on the wall. No matter who it was, even an atheist, sitting with a true deity while a suspected demigod sat opposite, no one could adapt in a short time, especially a spectator, with exceptional spirit and keen observation skills. Audrey lay on the bed for a long time before recovering from the shock of the deity. She began to enter the spectator state, analyzing the states and movements of everyone at the Tarot Club, trying to see something. When Mr. Fool mentioned trying that ritual, his tone carried a certain confidence. Audrey, who was silently analyzing, suddenly gasped, her body trembling slightly. Combined with the Hanged Man's words, it can be judged that he truly is a deity. However, from his current performance, he is a kind, lawful deity. But then again, what can I decide? Since I cannot resist, I won't think about it. Audrey hummed a cheerful melody as she left the large bed and walked toward the door. She actively adjusted her state, transforming into a spectator, preparing to digest the potion as quickly as possible to get ready for the promotion to telepathist. Ending the meeting, Li Meng got up from the bed and found that the sheets were soaked through. Acting in front of a spectator is very mentally draining. Fortunately, I was promoted to a listener, which inherently gives me the ability to distinguish emotions through people's voices. To some extent, I can counter a spectator, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thinking of the 4 candles in the basement, Li Meng decided to strike while the iron was hot and perform the ritual Klein had taught. Opening the basement door and relighting the candles, Li Meng thought for a moment, then pulled out an even smaller perfume bottle with exquisite patterns carved on it, lightly dripping a drop onto each candle. I wonder if there's a scent in this perfume that Mr. Fool likes. Anyway, Avatar number 4 seemed to like this one a lot. He took a silent breath, lowered his head, and began to recite the formal incantation in Hermes language. The fool who does not belong to this era. The mysterious ruler above the gray fog. The king of yellow and black who wields good luck. I pray for your help. I pray for your favor. I pray for you to grant me a good dream. Deep sleep flower, herb belonging to the red moon, please transmit your power to my incantation. Bergamot, herb belonging to the sun, please transmit your power to my incantation. Just as Li Meng finished reciting the incantation and intended to meditate on the content of his prayer, he felt wind blowing within the sealed wall of spirituality and saw the crimson stars on the back of his hand circulating. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly half-closed his eyes, calmly visualizing and sincerely requesting. When everything ended, Li Meng found that Mr. Fool had no reaction whatsoever. That's it. Li Meng frowned slightly, thinking it was likely that Klein's spirituality was insufficient and he had fallen off the gray fog, and would only respond above the gray fog after some time. Realizing that after praying, his actions might be exposed to the other party's vision, Li Meng decided to wait patiently until Klein replied before continuing his actions. Especially the fact that he was an Amon's avatar, he absolutely could not let him see that. Currently, Klein shouldn't have mastered the ability to discern a true body through the gray fog. I am currently not in a state of being parasitized. As long as I don't play pranks and use the monocle, I should not be discovered, right? Chapter 46, I know. Inside a semi-collapsed dark gray tower in the forsaken land of the gods. A young man wearing blood-red robes, with red hair and red eyes, and features as sharp as if carved by a knife or axe, was kneeling before a roaring bonfire, tremblingly reciting an ancient honorary name in ancient Dragonese. Around him lay fresh monster flesh, heads, stones carved into the shape of wolves, various dried corpses, bones, and large chunks of rotting meat. The Umbral Lord who coexists with history. The embodiment of countless miracles. The deity in charge of wishes. The attendant of the spirit world. The son of Phlegre. The great god of wishes, Kotar. The young man's voice shook more violently as he recited, and by the end, he was almost sobbing. In the darkness not far from him, many young men wearing monocles and classical black robes were hidden, quietly alert for any sudden attacks that might erupt from the darkness. Number 03 Worm of Time, Channel Chief Administrator, Number 19, recited again in ancient Devilish. The umbral demonic wolf Kotar has lived in the forsaken land of the gods for thousands of years, perhaps he is no longer familiar with Dragonese. A string of blood-red text appeared in Number 19's mind. The young man seemed to break down instantly. He suddenly stood up and shouted loudly. Why me? I demand another vote. This is persecution of us avatars returning from the land of betrayal. I won't go, I won't go. This will definitely lead to death. Before his voice could fade, the darkness in front of the young man seemed to disappear, and his body began to turn black, as if he too were about to vanish into the darkness. Just then, a black-robed figure silently watching everything from the darkness reached out and adjusted the monocle over his right eye. The young man's blackening body quickly pulled away from the darkness and returned to the bonfire. With slightly dazed eyes, he began to recite the honorary name of the umbral demonic wolf Kotar in ancient Devilish. Over and over again, the young man's trembling voice echoed across this dark land. Those Amons avatars, wearing monocles and black classical robes, waited quietly in the darkness, as if the night of the forsaken land of the gods posed no threat to them at all. Time passed minute by minute. Aside from frequent lightning, everything remained unchanged. The Amons lurked in the darkness, as motionless as classical sculptures. The lobby of the Eel Street police station in Tiana. "Officer, I really have discovered a cultist." A blue-haired middle-aged man was loudly recounting his discovery to a young police officer. "He lives right in my villa. When he rented the house, he didn't even bargain and paid me £30 directly. This is clearly the behavior of a cultist." The young officer pulled a thick notebook from a drawer and began to take notes. To keep him calm, I pretended to agree. "Based on my observations, he has no official job in Tiana, no noble title or assets, and he is certainly not an outstanding, law-abiding merchant like myself. He rarely goes out during the day, but the neighbors always observe him returning home late at night. Out of a sense of responsibility toward Tiana, I've spoken extensively with the neighbors. They can provide oral evidence to prove that this person is definitely a bad man." The young officer's recording speed couldn't quite keep up, and he kept interrupting the description to ask repeated questions. "Oh, right, Madame Liana, who is separated from him by only a wall, told me she often hears strange noises coming from the room next door, and sometimes a pungent smell wafts out. Unlike us, he looks so cunning and treacherous, he will surely cause great harm to our Tiana. Furthermore, no one has ever heard him recite the honorary name of the great Lord of Storms, nor have they seen him offer his piety to the Evernight goddess. This must be an evil heretic. Write it down, he is a heretic." The blue-haired middle-aged man looked at the young officer, seemingly very dissatisfied with his recording speed. "Officer, this is the view of me, a hard-working, honest, and law-abiding fisherman, Jared Hodgson, on this matter. Please, officer, be sure to arrest him as soon as possible to prevent him from causing further damage. You know, those heretics are often mentally unstable and lack reverence for the gods. The address where he lives is 15 Swordfish Street, Tiana, my former residence. I know that place very well. If needed, I can take you there right now." Jared Hodgson glanced at the young officer, his voice growing even louder. "Remember my name. I, Jared Hodgson, residing on Eel Street, discovered an evil heretic. Given my good relationship with your senior Inspector Bradley, I took the risk to come and inform you. I hope you take action quickly. Don't forget my £50 reporting fee." Mr. Jared Hodgson watched the young officer write his name in the notebook before nodding with satisfaction, picking up the round-brimmed felt hat on the table, and swaggering out of the police station. The young officer unhurriedly closed the notebook and took a sip of cold coffee. "Looks like I'll have to work overtime again tonight." The officer grumbled dissatisfiedly, took the notebook, pushed open a small side door, and quietly walked in. The basement of 15 Swordfish Street, Tiana. After the Tarot Club meeting ended, Li Meng set out his materials again and practiced the Fallen Flame ritual recorded in the Scholar's Book No. 9998. Unlike the Wall of Spirituality, Fallen Flame was a simple ritual to strengthen fire. Its only function was to make the power of corruption within flesh and blood burn on its own, making it a masterpiece for environmental protection. By the time Li Meng had reviewed a few more rituals, cleaned the room, and eaten a simple dinner, the sky was completely dark. "I can finally get a good night's sleep today." In the second-floor bedroom, Li Meng lit 4 candles, dripped some malt-scented perfume, picked up the rusted bronze dagger, and set up a wall of spirituality in the bedroom. Although it wouldn't last long, it was very effective for treating insomnia. With the help of the wall of spirituality, Li Meng quickly fell into a deep sleep. Thud, thud, thud. A sudden, rapid knocking sounded. Li Meng woke from his dream, glanced at the morning light outside the window, and sat up with a slightly muddled head, asking impatiently, "Who is it? So early?" Li Meng rubbed his eyes hard. Was the effect of this wall of spirituality really that good? It felt like he had only slept for 3 or 4 hours. Checking the gas meter. A steady male voice answered from outside the door. What a hassle. Li Meng shook his head, got out of bed, and walked toward the door. Just as he was about to pull the door open, layers of gray fog suddenly spread before his eyes, and a distorted, blurry figure stood in the deepest part. Deep red swirled in the figure's eye sockets, and a voice echoed continuously in the empty, desolate world. I know. The morning light outside the window shattered instantly, and the entire room was plunged into pitch-black darkness. Chapter 47, The Capture. All the morning light in his vision shattered like a mirror, every glimmer of light vanished silently, and the entire room returned to darkness. In an instant, Li Meng understood what had happened. Nighthawks. Since arriving in the land of betrayal, Tiana, and 15 Swordfish Street, Li Meng had envisioned this scenario many times. As an avatar of Amon, a life without being hunted by the 7 major churches would be incomplete. Li Meng also felt secretly relieved that he always kept his Beander items close at hand, never letting them stray. In particular, the shepherd's glove number 9998 almost never left his person for a single step. A sense of danger pricked his brow like a needle, as if something were aiming right at him. Li Meng rolled across the floor, and by the time he scrambled up, his right hand was already clad in the shepherd's glove No. 9998. A massive amount of spirituality was instantly injected into the middle finger, and his entire body was immediately coated in a thick layer of blue phantom scales. The phantom scales shimmered, instantly turning from ethereal to solid, encasing Li Meng's body. Bang! Bang! 2 piercing gunshots tore through the night sky and slammed into Li Meng. Li Meng felt his entire body get blown back by a massive force, crashing heavily against the wall. Before he could react, a massive object flew through the pitch-black night, heading straight for Li Meng's throat. Without time to think, Li Meng's gloved right hand grabbed a small wooden box and forcefully thrust it in front of the attacking object. The powerful wind and immense impact shattered the wooden box, and a dried-up centipede-like thing latched onto the surface of the attacking object. That was exactly the sealed artifact Li Meng had obtained from that unknown listener, the scorching scar. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream erupted from the massive dark shadow. The shadow rapidly turned crimson, like a burning candle, as large drops of black candle tears fell from the translucent silhouette. Li Meng gained a brief moment of respite. Those 2 shots had hit his ribs and forehead. Fortunately, while the listener potion didn't boost intelligence much, it significantly enhanced physical fitness. Combined with the reinforcement of the sailor's phantom scales, he had actually blocked the bullets, preventing them from penetrating deeper into his body. However, the impact of the bullets themselves was not to be underestimated. Li Meng could feel the flesh at his wounds seemingly burning. For every second he delayed, his body grew a fraction weaker. 2 more gunshots rang out in the darkness. Li Meng felt as if his chest had been struck by a sledgehammer, and several more wounds appeared on his body. I can't go on like this. The opponent is a Beander of the darkness pathway, their combat power increases significantly in the night. This time, Li Meng made no movement. He closed his eyes directly and switched to the soul of a notary. The entire room suddenly became bright. The depth and gloom vanished simultaneously as a ray of golden sunlight rose like a sun, then expanded, lighting up a sphere of light at its center, surrounded by countless flickering flames. Flames of purification. Boom! The entire house shook violently. Several screams echoed from the darkness of the house, followed by figures rushing out as if their entire bodies were on fire. Taking advantage of this opening, Li Meng quickly snatched the scholar's book number 9998 from the cabinet, activated the wind-blessed wind control flight, and jumped out of the window. As soon as he landed, Li Meng immediately switched to the hypnotist's Beander characteristic and activated psychological invisibility. He remembered that the Nighthawk hidden outside was at least a sequence 7-8 nightmare. A middle-aged man wearing a gray windbreaker gradually emerged from the shadows. In one hand, he held a revolver, and in the other, a milky white tooth with an ugly red scar stuck to it. The middle-aged man looked around, seemingly talking to himself. Invisibility. Is it the demonist sect, the psychology alchemists, or a sealed artifacts effect? Dragging his injured body, Li Meng turned a corner and immediately switched to the faceless characteristic. He activated damage transfer, moving the wounds on his body to his arm, and heavily altered his facial muscles until he looked exactly like a local. Because the Wind-Blessed ability had been deactivated and the heavy use of the glove's abilities had drained his spirituality, Li Meng's body became extremely weak. I still don't know how I was exposed. It's best to leave here first. Li Meng had only walked 2 steps when he suddenly remembered the opponent was an official organization. There would surely be people watching the main transport routes at the docks and harbor, waiting for him to show up. A pity about the scorching scar. From now on, I can only rely on the glove for combat. Li Meng deliberated for a long time and decided to find a place to recover from his injuries first, then contact other avatars to determine the cause of the exposure. Li Meng wound through small alleys from Swordfish Street, finally arriving at Blackfish Street. He found an empty courtyard, quietly used the Marauder's ability to pick the lock, and slipped inside to rest. Straining his last bit of spirituality, he performed an anti-divination ritual and then collapsed unconscious onto the bed. Beneath St. Lucis Cathedral, the headquarters of the Church of the Night in Tiana, behind the Charnus Gate. The Nighthawk captain, Loic, dressed in a gray windbreaker, was carefully separating the scorching scar from a white tooth. The tooth seemed like a living thing, emitting bursts of screams. Opposite him sat an old man wearing a gray soft hat, recording the entire process with a fountain pen. Contact the Tide Church at the docks. Tell them a mysterious powerhouse has appeared in Tiana with unknown motives, at least sequence 7 or above, proficient in various spells, cunning, and highly alert. We need their assistance in the capture. The target may possess a large number of sealed artifacts and was hit by at least 4 demon-hunting bullets. Have them pay close attention to screenings at the docks. After speaking, the Nighthawk captain frowned as he looked at the tooth. The white tooth, which had been like a piece of art, was now scorched with numerous red spots. The old man in the gray soft hat waited quietly, seemingly knowing the captain had more to say. By the way, write a report to headquarters. State that 30218 has been damaged. The spirit attached to the tooth was burned, with over 60% of its form lost. It is suspected to be contaminated and can no longer be used normally. It needs to be sent back to headquarters for disposal. The old man continued to wait quietly, showing no intention of leaving. Have the police department check for information on that mysterious powerhouse. He couldn't have appeared in Tiana out of thin air. Tomorrow, take Jared Hodgson into custody first to see if we can obtain more information. All right, you can go now. I'm finished. The old man in the gray soft hat turned slowly and walked toward the door. His sluggish movements looked as if someone were pulling his feet from the ground. Niels, wait a moment. This is a drop of blood I found at the scene. You can try to use your divination ability to get more information. As Captain Loic spoke, he pulled out a white handkerchief with a drop of bright red blood in the center. The old man took the handkerchief, turned his head, and slowly walked out of the Charnus Gate. Did I forget some other important information? Forget it, I won't think about it. The Nighthawk captain frowned again and patted his thinning forehead. Chapter 48. Number 3006. In a luxurious villa on Acid Lemon Street in Bayam, the city of generosity and capital of the Rorstad archipelago. In a bedroom on the second floor near the balcony, a woman in a translucent gauze dress sat on a sofa directly facing the window. The summer sunlight shone through the oriel window onto her fair skin, making it look exceptionally dazzling. Opposite her sat a standard Loan gentleman. His white shirt, black trousers, and the silk top hat on his head made him appear increasingly refined and elegant. The man was talking incessantly about various anecdotes and customs of the Loan nobility, his words filled with disdain. However, his eyes, which constantly swept over the large expanse of white skin on the woman's chest, ultimately betrayed him, making his speech seem somewhat distracted. The woman, who had been listening intently, suddenly shuddered, as if she had sensed something. She frowned, and impatiently lifting her straight, shapely leg, she kicked the man sitting directly in front of her hard in the lower abdomen. The man's heavy body was instantly sent flying. Clutching his lower abdomen with both hands, he curled into a ball on the floor like a cooked shrimp. The pain was so intense that he couldn't even speak, only able to make weak gasping sounds. The woman brushed her hair aside and stood up gracefully from the sofa. The noon sun shone directly on her. Beneath her waterfall-like long brown hair were a pair of brown eyes that looked like a deer in the forest, pure, moist, and flawless. Yet her curved brows, upturned eyes, straight nose, and delicate lips sketched a picture of mature feminine charm. The two were blended together in a contradictory manner, yet they radiated an astonishing allure. The man struggling in pain on the floor saw this scene and instantly seemed to forget his pain again. In an intermittent voice, he asked in confusion, "Why? There is no why. Seeing someone like you makes me want to vomit. Get out. The woman spoke dismissively. From a gold-inlaid rack at the head of the bed, she picked up the man's formal coat and threw it onto him like she was throwing away trash. The man looked up at the woman, struggled to get up and put on his clothes, and walked out while leaning against the wall. The woman stood quietly, watching the man leave. Hearing the sound of his footsteps thumping down the stairs, she gently waved her hand. The thick black curtains, as if pulled by an invisible thread, quickly closed, making the entire room airtight and as dark as late night. A thin pendant was pulled out from her chest by the woman. Adorned with a massive emerald, it emitted a hazy glow, illuminating the room like a fairyland. The woman sighed, tucked away the pendant, and casually took a translucent lace gauze dress from the wardrobe to put on. Next, she pushed the wardrobe aside with some effort, revealing a heavy safe. Opening the safe, the woman took out 4 candles, some common ritual materials, and a staff carved like a venomous snake. After thinking for a moment, she also took out a few ancient gold coins and a large stack of brand new LOTM pounds. Closing the safe, the woman dragged the bedside cabinet to the center of the room. Then, she pulled out a dusty clock from a corner of the room and inserted the 4 candles into the 4 corners of the bedside cabinet. A black flame flickered from the woman's fingertips, lighting the 4 candles. Looking at the dust on the clock, she furrowed her smooth brow. Black flames instantly enveloped the clock. After a few seconds, the clock's wooden casing became as smooth and shiny as if it had been repainted. The woman found a bottle of perfume that was more than half used from the bed and poured it onto the candles. A blood-pumping fragrance began to permeate the entire room. The pointer that fiddles with time. The shadow that roams fate. The incarnation of deceit and mischief. The great son of the Creator. The hard-working and responsible channel administrator. The fair and wise No. 4 clone. Holding the pendant in both hands, the woman knelt before the clock and began to softly chant the mysterious honorary name. The blue smoke rising from the candles condensed into wisps of blue-black mist before her eyes. The mist twisted and deformed with the flames, forming a massive image. It was a vast, surging sea, with seagulls and petrels flying over the surface. The image gradually shrank, and finally, the perspective focused on a tiny island. It could even only be considered a giant rock protruding from the sea. In the very center of the giant rock, a young man wearing black-rimmed glasses covered in cracks lay weakly on the stone. He wore tattered low-end formal wear, stained with orange-red paint. One of his shoes was missing, and he looked as if he had collapsed from exhaustion, his chest rising and falling with his breath. At the young man's feet, 4 candles that had almost burned to their ends remained. It looked like a sacrificial ritual had just been performed here. The image slowly disappeared, and a line of bloody words appeared in the center of the screen, showing the extreme anger in the owner's heart at this moment. Number 3006, find clone number 9521 and take him to Tiana. Find clone number 9998 and supervise them to Backland. The woman unhurriedly lifted the pendant and swung it in front of the candles. A line of white text appeared on the image. Just let me take clone number 9998 to Backland directly. Just leave 9521 there. Losing one sequence 8 Beander characteristic isn't much of a loss. The bloody words vanished instantly. Then, even more crimson words, even featuring a blood-dripping effect, appeared on the image. Do as I say. The bloody words slowly vanished, and the candles went out along with them. Only a faint fragrance remained in the room. The woman stood up in anger. Her bare right foot kicked the bedside cabinet hard, causing the candles and the clock on top to all crash to the floor. Can't even bear to part with a single demoness of affliction's Beander characteristic. If you won't give it to me, HMPH, just you wait. The woman stepped barefoot onto the clock that had fallen on the floor. With a frown and a surge of force from her foot, she crushed the wooden clock into pieces, with the springs and gears inside scattering everywhere. Lisa, come up here for a moment. The woman pulled open the curtains, revealing most of her body, and shouted loudly to a maid downstairs who was hanging laundry. The maid hurriedly dropped the clothes in the basin and ran up the stairs. She saw her mistress sitting quietly on the bed, looking at the shattered clock casing on the floor. How did this clock break? Miss spent £15 on this. It's said to be the work of the Loan master, Disuo. I'll go find a clockmaker to see if it can still be repaired. Don't bother. Throw the clock and the carpet away together. Miss, this carpet was bought for £28. It's a Fenipote pure wool carpet. If you like it, you can have it. Miss, whatever you say goes. Just for the £1 a week salary you give me, I'll do whatever you ask. I'm going out for a while soon. If anyone comes to buy or sell intelligence, receive them on my behalf. This local servant, nearly 40 years old with a slightly aged face, rough skin, and a sturdy build, suddenly turned bright red and said falteringly, "Miss, I can't do that work of yours. Look at me." As she spoke, she held out both hands, revealing fingers covered in thick calluses. "What are you thinking? Do you think you're as beautiful as me, as young, as full of charm, as lingeringly desirable?" The woman sat on the bed, her voice devoid of emotion. The maid Lisa looked at the woman in confusion and asked, "But, I don't know how." "It doesn't matter. Just write down their important messages and send them to me. I'll tell you the mailing address by letter. I will judge the value and provide the amount. You can use the pounds in the safe to pay the rewards, or you can have them wait until I return. I know you're literate, and I know you're far smarter than you appear. More importantly, I know you won't disappoint me." Chapter 49, Ghost Ship. An extremely hidden private port in Bayam. Number 3006 was wearing a bright red gauze dress, her long brown hair cascading down like a waterfall. Wearing polished buckskin boots, she stood on an inland river vessel with its sails raised, looking completely unlike someone about to head out to sea. To find good books from Taiwan, visit the Taiwan novel website. TC is very convenient. Standing opposite her was a middle-aged man wearing a blue lightning robe. He had thick eyebrows, large eyes, a square mouth, a broad nose, and deep blue hair that resembled seaweed. The man's deep, almost purple eyes gazed at her affectionately for a long while before he spoke. "I am very happy that you came to find me. However, although this deep blue flyer is under my control, it is still technically the property of the church, and cannot leave Bayam for too long. You need to return it as soon as possible." "I know, I'll return it immediately after I'm done, my respected Archbishop of the Church of Storms, His Excellency Edgar Melendez." The woman's voice carried a hint of impatience. "I am not an archbishop yet, just calling me Lord Edgard is fine." Edgard spoke with a touch of humility, but the smile in his eyes could not be hidden. "All right, Edgard, you can leave now." The woman's voice suddenly turned coarse as she slammed the helm. The ghost ship made a sharp turn across the water, kicking up a large spray of white foam. "You make me very sad. Without your company, I suffer from insomnia night after night." Although Edgard spoke jokingly, his body remained fixed to the ship like a nail, motionless. "Stay away from me." The woman spoke disdainfully, her eyes fixed on the sea as if she were an experienced old captain preparing to set sail. "My dear, this ship is worth at least £10,000. Edgard remained standing on the ship, unmoving. "Get lost. Don't think that everyone in the Church of Storms has a delicate and elegant heart like mine. They are often quite impolite and can be extremely crude toward ladies. Get far away from me." The woman acted as if she hadn't heard him, simply repeating her stance. "Fine, I will wait for you at Sour Lemon Street." Giving the woman one last look, the man jumped into the water and disappeared into the sea like a fish. Number 3006 operated the ghost ship, swiftly sailing out of the port and into the boundless ocean. The entire ship was silent. Aside from number 3006, there was not another living soul. Once the ghost ship had completely left the island and the coastline was no longer visible, number 3006 slowly walked into the captain's cabin and took out a silver pendant set with an emerald. "That idiot is dead. That idiot is dead." Number 3006 muttered this 7 times before opening her watery eyes to look at the emerald. The necklace was spinning counterclockwise with a large amplitude. The woman disdainfully put away the necklace, rehanging it around her neck, and then took out a staff carved with a venomous snake. Wrinkling her nose, number 3006 picked up a rag stained with paint in one hand and held the staff in the other, softly chanting in ancient Hermes. The current whereabouts of No. 9521. The current whereabouts of No. 9521. After chanting 7 times, number 3006 entered a state of meditation. Her entire being became ethereal and translucent as her thoughts began to spread boundlessly along with the rag. She saw a young man wearing black-rimmed glasses, a black formal suit, and black leather shoes being brought to a pier by a mysterious person to begin repairing ships. Countless amounts of sweat and paint stained the rag, making number 3006 feel short of breath even within her meditation. The scene shattered and shifted. Number 9521 seemed to be leaving. He went to buy a ticket, only to find that his last few pennies weren't even enough for the cheapest third-class ticket. He tried begging, hoping to raise enough money for a boat ticket, only to be severely beaten by the local beggars. He tried to sneak in among the crew, but was quickly discovered and thrown into the water. In the water, he discovered he could actually swim. He mustered his spirits and prepared to swim to his destination. The scene shifted again. The young man was lying on a deserted small island in the middle of the ocean, vomiting up mouthfuls of seawater. Number 3006 put away her staff with satisfaction, ending the dream divination. She walked out of the captain's cabin and threw the rag into the sea with all her might. The ghost ship gradually became transparent. The pure white sails billowed strangely on the windless sea, and the hull began to accelerate silently, trailing a long white line on the surface of the water. Blackfish Street, Tiana. Li Meng had just finished lunch at a remote small restaurant when he felt the scholar's book number 9998 in his breast pocket start to heat up slightly. He casually tossed down one sol and quickly walked out of the restaurant. Finding a deserted, abandoned courtyard, he began to silently recite number 4's honorific name. Given the urgency, he didn't even light any candles this time. The pointer that fiddles with time. The shadow that travels through fate. The incarnation of deceit and mischief. Great son of the Creator. The industrious and responsible channel administrator. Number 4 was still sitting in that ancient palace, his voice majestic and heavy. I have instructed number 3006 and number 9521 to come and pick you up. You will go to Backland together. Before Li Meng could react, number 4 had already disappeared, leaving only an address before Li Meng's eyes. What was supposed to be within 30 days had turned into 3 days in the blink of an eye. Li Meng suddenly gained a profound understanding of the Amons style. No matter the time or place, deception always comes when least expected. Forsaken land of the gods. Number 19, dressed in blood-red robes, was still reciting the honorific name of the Dark Wolf. His voice had grown hoarse, his mind was near collapse, and his will was beginning to scatter. He had become incredibly exhausted, as if he might fall asleep at any moment. The pile of firewood in front of him also began to burn smaller and smaller, gradually starting to go out. Amon's avatar hidden in the darkness continued to watch all of this coldly. Just as the flames were about to extinguish, number 3 adjusted his monocle, preparing to restore No 19's spirit and make the fire flare up again to keep everything going. At that moment, countless streaks of silver-white lightning suddenly manifested. In the sudden burst of brilliance, bolts of lightning leapt out from the void, crackling and swirling within the collapsed dark gray high tower. They tangled together, transforming into a forest of thunder that emitted an aura of destruction and world-ending power. Rumble. Thunder rolled across the entire forsaken land of the gods, heading into the distance. Thick, magnificent bolts of lightning fell either simultaneously or in succession, striking number 19 and all the avatars. It's here. A cruel smile appeared on number 3's face. On the monocle over his right eye, a grayish-white disc emerged. The surface of the disc was divided into 12 segments with a black pointer, much like a clock from the outside world. Those segments were not evenly distributed across the surface, some were large and some were small, appearing extremely uncoordinated, and half of each segment was smeared with shadow. The black pointer spun rapidly, and the vast expanse of thunder in front of him quickly contracted. For a moment, the surroundings became exceptionally bright, a sheet of blazing white. The terrifying thunder vanished instantly. Number 3 looked up again and found that number 19, who had been kneeling there, had vanished. Not only that, but the avatars lurking in the night had all disappeared into the deep darkness. The fire had also completely vanished into the darkness, as if it had never been burning at all. Interesting. The corners of number 3's mouth curled back slightly, revealing a hint of an uncontrollable smile. Chapter 50, Setting Sail. On a small island near the Sunia Sea, number 3006 found number 9521 without the slightest effort. He was lying prone on a large rock, his breathing so faint it was almost imperceptible. You only swam less than 10 kilometers. An archaeologist's abilities are really lacking. The woman gave a couple of casual kicks, and her deerskin boots, worth 8 pounds, flew off her feet and sank into the depths of the sea. Back in the day, I was someone who swam from Bayam to Tiana with my bare hands. The woman muttered to herself as she jumped from the boat into the water. Her delicate, smooth toes stepped directly onto the sharp, hideous rocks on the seabed, making them crack and crunch. She walked barefoot on the waist-deep water as if she were walking on level ground. Number 9521 remained motionless on the rock, as if even his breathing had stopped. The woman walked up to him, casually grabbed No 9521's shoeless foot, and lifted him upside down. Under the glow of the setting sun, they cast a long shadow. Streaks of black flame ignited on No 9521's body. After burning his tattered clothes to nothing, they didn't go out but continued to blaze fiercely against his skin. His skin began to turn bright red, and plumes of steam rose from his body and mouth. He looked as if he were being steamed alive. The woman seemed dissatisfied with the progress and shook No 9521's body vigorously up and down. Poor No 9521's head thudded against the island's rocks, and a thin stream of water slowly trickled out of his mouth. Cough, cough. After all that tossing around, number 9521 finally regained consciousness. He saw 2 white, shapely legs standing before him, with the hem of a red skirt brushing against them. Just as number 9521 was about to look further up, he felt himself take flight. Immediately after, a sharp pain hit his back as he slammed heavily onto the deck of the ghost ship. The woman stood on the beach, took a short run up, and easily leapt several meters onto the deck. With another kick, she flipped number 9521 over so that his face and body were pressed against the deck. Number 3006 unhurriedly entered the captain's cabin. When she emerged a few minutes later, her clothes were completely dry. She held a few pork pies that looked like they had been bitten into and casually tossed them onto the deck. Consider yourself lucky. The food sold at the pier is terrible, so you can have the rest of these. The man struggled to crawl over, picked up the pies, and devoured them ravenously. In less than 2 minutes, the pies were all gone. Water, is there any water? The man raised his head with difficulty. Because he had eaten too much too quickly, he seemed to be stuffed and lay on the ground, unable to move. What water? Isn't there enough water in your head already? And you want to drink more? The woman scolded him in dissatisfaction. Feeling that No 9521's presence on the deck was an eyesore, she gave him another kick, sending him into the shadows at the bow. Looking at No 9521's naked body and sun-blackened skin, the woman frowned. She turned and went inside, returning a moment later to toss a black dress onto No 9521. This. Put it on. Why on earth would you think a woman would carry men's clothes around with her? Number 9521 hesitated for a long time but eventually put on the black dress. Although the two had similar facial features, No 9521's skin had long been tanned by the sun. His rough, scar-covered features, disheveled hair, and the slightly old-fashioned black dress made him look over a decade older than No. 3006. Right-pointing arrow. His other shoe had also been burned away by No. 3006. Now he could only stand barefoot on the deck like her. Standing next to the woman, he felt like a curly baboon. If you're not dead, learn how to sail the ship. Those of you from the artisan pathway are best suited for this. The woman pointed at the helm and stretched. Number 9521 wanted to argue, but after glancing up at the woman's shapely legs, he held his tongue. There are sea charts and a sextant in the captain's cabin. Learn how to use them. I'm going to put on some makeup. Number 9521 used the ship's railing to pull himself up. As the sea breeze blew in gusts, the thin black gauze dress provided very little warmth, and he couldn't help but wrap his arms around himself. Tiana Island. Li Meng set out by public carriage, transferring to hired carriages along the way, and finally walking for over a dozen miles. He eventually reached the designated location, a very remote area on the outskirts of Tiana. Sitting on a protruding rock, he watched the clouds shifting shapes over the distant sea and the seagulls flying freely at low altitudes in search of food, quietly waiting for the arrival of late night. According to the requirements of Number 4, At exactly midnight, other avatars would arrive at the beach before him to take him to Loan Kingdom's Pritz port. Whatever happened in Tiana or the Rorstad archipelago would no longer have anything to do with him. That was why he showed no reaction to the Loan Kingdom police patrolling the streets or the punishers of the Church of Storms and Nighthawks of the Church of the Night lurking at the docks and harbors. He didn't even have the thought of fighting back. My spiritual intuition tells me that being pursued by the Church of the Night last night seems to have been an accident. If an Amons avatar had been exposed, they probably would have dispatched someone at the Archbishop level directly, rather than a Nighthawk squad that seemed just a bit stronger than me. Li Meng half closed his eyes and began to recall the sequence of events, using this to enter a meditative state and maintain his spiritual acuity. There was still a long wait until nightfall, and he couldn't just fall asleep. In the wild, even if he wasn't found by pursuers, fierce predators and amphibious fish wouldn't mind treating a human as food. The Nighthawks' arrangement was likely based on treating me as an ordinary cultist. Sending a nightmare with a grade 3 sealed artifact and 2 low sequence beyonders for the capture was a very reasonable choice. Just as Li Meng was repeatedly replaying the process in his mind, his spiritual perception was suddenly triggered, and his eyes snapped open. Under the long shadow of a nearby coconut tree, a beggar was lying down. Li Meng flexed his gloved right hand, raising his palm and slowly spreading his 5 fingers before him. "Didn't you go back to the forsaken land of the gods? Do I look like a fool to you?" That mission was obviously a death trap. A meaningful smile appeared on the old beggar's face. "I am now a deep diver. You avatars who are easily exposed shouldn't contact me casually. Just toss a few gold coins." He picked up a wooden stick leaning nearby and tapped on a rusty iron bowl. "Then what did you come here for? The sun is nice here. Can't I come over to soak it up?" Li Meng looked up at the sky. As time ticked away, the setting sun had completely vanished. The distant blue ocean began to turn dark and deep, and the emerald forests and vast fields were shrouded in a layer of black mist. The old beggar seemed not to notice any of this. He stretched lazily, picked up a wooden barrel, found a large rock in the open, sat inside the barrel with his legs draped over the edge and his head sticking out, and soon began to emit thunderous snores. Chapter 51. 1689 days, 13 hours, 25 minutes, and 7 seconds. Late at night, Li Meng checked his pocket watch repeatedly until 3 a.m., when a speck of white finally appeared in the deepest part of the night. Based on his limited knowledge of ships, Li Meng knew that unfurling sails at such a time was unscientific, but it didn't stop the vessel from gliding smoothly across the dark sea, sailing toward the beach against the wind. The sailboat drew closer, and its flag became clearer. In the faint crimson moonlight, Li Meng, standing on the shore, saw the deep blue sea embroidered upon it, with endless white lightning flashing above the waves. This is the symbol of the Church of Storms. How could Amon's avatar have a vessel from the Church of Storms? Li Meng stood on the shore, feeling a moment of hesitation. A lady in a red dress appeared at the bow at some unknown moment. Her red gauze and long brown hair fluttered gently in the night breeze, looking like a celebrity from his past life posing for a camera. Under the crimson moonlight, Li Meng saw the lady's eyes suddenly light up. Brilliant starlight fell upon her face, making her delicate features appear even more pure, moist, and charming, like a mythological angel fallen to the mortal world. Just as Li Meng hesitated, the lady in the red dress seemed to notice a problem, and the starlight on her face extinguished. Her right hand, clad in a transparent mesh glove, waved gently, and the pattern of a cyan black clock appeared where her gaze met Li Meng's. This was the holy emblem of number 4, as well as the secret signal they had agreed upon for their meeting. Li Meng produced the same clock pattern, and a gust of wind swept up his body, landing him on the deck. Facing avatar number 3006, whose glamour seemed otherworldly, he showed no nervousness. He calmly tucked away his gloves and gave a polite bow. "Good evening, Ms. Elena." The woman in red stood as still as a nail at the bow. Like a meander of the darkness pathway, she was exceptionally spirited in the deep of the night. In the shadows of the deck, Li Meng also discovered a young man with dark skin and coarse features wearing a black dress, lying in a sheltered spot and snoring loudly. He knew that was avatar number 9521, whom number 4 had mentioned, a sequence 8 meander of the Savon pathway, an archaeologist. "Good evening, Your Excellency Julius." The woman slowly turned around and asked back with a frown. Yes. Number 4 asked us to head to Backland together. I hope we have a pleasant cooperation along the way. I hope so too, but you'll have to pay for the ticket for the Deep Blue Flyer. After saying this, the woman walked straight into the cabin and disappeared down the stairs. Just then, number 9521, who was sleeping on the deck, seemed to be woken up. He slowly climbed up, walked to Li Meng, rubbed his eyes hard, and said apologetically, "My glasses are gone, and I can't see clearly at night. I have to get close. Or 9998. Yes. Don't call me by my avatar number out here. Please call me Julius," Li Meng said earnestly. "Oh, I see. I don't have a name other than my avatar number. They all call me Xiao Dixie, saying I have a Dixie accent." Number 9521 looked like he had just realized something, and then he started talking to himself again. "After I awakened in the forsaken land of the gods, I was brought to the Barnacles and Seaweed shipyard by number 4 and handed over to the shipyard owner. He said I had a good memory and strong hands-on skills, so I could familiarize myself with ship structures there and learn about the maritime situation in Bayam. But not long after, the shipyard owner called me to the repair workshop and had me learn ship repair and maintenance with the workers." At this point, number 9521 shed his listless appearance, and a spark of spirit seemed to appear in his eyes. "Those overseers hit people with whips every day. The local workers, however, put together some food for me. I don't know why, but for the same black bread, they only need to eat 1 loaf, while I have to eat 3, and I still feel hungry every day." "How long have you been out?" Li Meng asked curiously. "I've been out of the forsaken land of the gods for 1689 days, 13 hours, 25 minutes, and 7 seconds. Is this, living a day like a year, or caused by the extraordinary memory of a savant? Do all savants have a hobby of talking non-stop? Or a desire to express themselves, just like how Russell insisted on writing a diary?" Thinking about his own frequent memory loss, Li Meng couldn't help but entertain the idea of creating a savant pathway sealed artifact. However, he quickly suppressed it, not only because Amon's avatars cannot harm each other, but also because attacking such an innocent person went too much against his conscience. "Besides, I don't want to become a chatterbox." The two sat on the deck and began to chat about their lives after leaving the forsaken land of the gods. Only then did Li Meng learn that when most avatars left the forsaken land of the gods, they did not have mid-sequence sealed artifacts. At most, they were given some activity funds, but after the person in charge of Bayam went into a deep dive state, even the activity funds were gone. "This is all the doing of that, no. 30 parasite." Li Meng complained silently. He still didn't know what that beggar was trying to do even now. Number 9521 continued to drone on about the experiences of other avatars he had heard about since arriving in the land of betrayal. Avatars of the thief pathway can still scrape together enough activity funds themselves. But for those of us on the savant pathway, we can't even earn enough money to buy potions. Whatever sequence we were when we left the forsaken land of the gods is the sequence we're still at now. There's almost no promotion. Thinking of this, number 9521 took a stealthy glance at the cabin. Seeing that no one was coming out, he continued. "Actually, among us avatars, there are a few wealthy ones. For example, number 3006, I heard she's been out for decades and has made a lot of money, but no one has ever been able to borrow money from her. Once, an avatar discovered potion materials but lacked some golden list and prayed to No. 13. At that time, number 13 was still in charge of the land of betrayal. He handed down an oracle telling us to go to No. 3006. In the end, number 3006 threw him a 1-pound gold coin and turned around to shut the door. Shouldn't avatars help each other? Through his experiences in the forsaken land of the gods and his contact with number 30 and No. 4, Li Meng had a full understanding of the relationship between Amon's avatars. He had originally thought this style only affected avatars of the thief pathway, but he hadn't expected it to be the same for all pathways. No. 3006, Ms. Elena, she has always wanted to advance to a demoness of afflictions, but she hasn't found enough materials. She once requested a high-sequence avatar to kill a demoness of afflictions for her, but she was forcibly stopped by No. 13. Since then, she has had a lot of grievances against other avatars, including No. 4. At this point, avatar number 9521 didn't seem sleepy anymore. He lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "It's said that number 3006 is the only avatar who successfully approached an archbishop of the Church of the Seven Gods without being discovered." Chapter 52 Free today. You're lucky, but Backland is truly dangerous. The clones that went there before never returned, number 9521 was saying when his stomach suddenly growled. Did you bring food? I only ate a few biscuits all day yesterday. Li Meng handed a few pieces of dried fish he carried to number 9521, who immediately took them and began munching happily. These dried fish are a specialty of Tiana, very similar to fish maw on Earth. They are made by cleaning fish bladders, adding pepper powder, wasabi root, and then air drying them. Although they have an unpleasant fishy smell, they are very high in calories after being dried. Eating one can keep you from feeling hungry for a day, making them especially favored by local fishermen. Of course, Li Meng brought them mainly to guard against hunger on the road. In the forsaken land of the gods, Amon's method of creating a sense of fullness by deceiving the stomach was too hard to accept. Although these dried fish didn't suit Li Meng's taste, they could fill his stomach. When facing those clones who were good at deception and pranks, one had to be well prepared. Although they couldn't directly harm him, they were very happy to indirectly cause psychological damage. Watching the rising sun, Li Meng searched through the ghost ship and found a complete kitchen and plenty of food. This is a ghost ship that is frequently used and maintained. Could number 3006 be a low-profile pirate on the sea? While he was wandering around the ghost ship, number 3006 appeared before him again. She had changed into a white dress, looking pure and elegant. This ghost ship is mixed with an astrologer Beander characteristic and a seafarer Beander characteristic. It could sell for at least 20,000 pounds in Bayam. If you want it, I can give it all to you, as long as you give me those gloves. No. Li Meng resolutely refused. He had been outwitting various clones, but this was the first time one was so direct. The shepherd's glove number 9998 was currently his most important sealed artifact. He would not hand it over no matter what. Why can't clones harm each other? This rule by number 0 makes the world much less fun. Number 3006 leaned against the captain's cabin and sighed with boredom. The unmanned ghost ship drifted slowly on the sea, like a homeless child. After number 9521 finished the dried fish, he dove back into the captain's cabin and began fiddling with the complex instruments and thick books. Sailing on the ocean was dull and boring, especially on a ghost ship with only 3 living people. Number 9521 found a large stack of books in the captain's cabin and became completely absorbed in them, taking over the ghost ship in the process. Li Meng was in his room flipping through the scholar's book number 9998, familiarizing himself with various rituals. He didn't know where number 3006 had gone. Since seeing her once when he boarded, he hadn't seen his figure again. But whenever he was bored, he would think of the tumbleweed and seeds he left at 15 Swordfish Street, a full 800 pounds, gone without a trace in the blink of an eye. 27 Swordfish Street, Tiana. Melvin Haynes, with short golden hair and a warm, reserved expression, had finally gathered all the materials for the apothecary potion. 1 horn of an adult unicorn Pegasus, 3 grams of crown jellyfish venom crystals. Looking at the green liquid in the test tube, Melvin frowned and hesitated for a long time before finally pouring it into his mouth. "Daddy, what are you doing? Another patient has come, and he's in a lot of pain." A young girl with a high yellow ponytail and a youthful face rushed into Melvin's dispensing room, looking curiously at the glass tube in her father's hand. "Daddy, what are you sneaking? Is it tasty?" "Nothing, I found a new medicine that is said to treat vascular necrosis." "I'm tasting it first," Melvin said with a smile, stroking the girl's hair. "You're lying, you're definitely sneaking food. I even found honey on your prescription pad last time. Children just don't understand. You've messed up the prescription pads, it'll be so much trouble for patients to find them later." The little girl puffed out her cheeks in anger and said huffily, "I didn't mess them up. If Mom hadn't told me not to let you eat things randomly, I wouldn't bother with you." The smile on Melvin's face seemed to vanish. He picked up the little girl and walked toward the hall. In the hall, rows of solid wood cabinets lined the walls, with dense small drawers labeled with various slips of paper indicating the names of different medicines. Facing the hall was a long wooden table. An elderly man with graying hair and a swollen body, whose feet seemed infirm, was sitting in a nearby chair, holding a rough tree branch as a cane in his right hand. "Dr. Melvin, my knee is acting up again. It hurts terribly." Melvin glanced at the old man and skillfully kneaded the old man's leg a few times. "It's all right, I'll prepare some medicine for you, and it'll be better soon. 5 grams of poplar bark, 1 stalk of midsummer grass." As usual, he ignored the text on the drawers, skillfully opened a cabinet, and directly selected a piece of yellow bark from inside. The moment his hand touched the bark, he found he could clearly know the production process and effects of this piece of bark. Although this piece of poplar bark was exactly 5 grams, because the heat was too high during preparation, its current medicinal efficacy was less than 5 grams. Melvin felt the medicinal efficacy while holding the piece of poplar bark. After a long time, he gently put the poplar bark back into the cabinet and pulled out a larger piece. Although this piece is a full 8 grams, its actual active ingredients are exactly 5 grams. This can also be verified from the smell. Its efficacy has begun to fade, and using only 5 grams would not be enough. If the dosage is insufficient, it won't heal but will instead worsen the pain. He closed his eyes to feel the weight of the poplar bark, smelled it repeatedly, and finally placed it into a large paper bag. Melvin continued to skillfully grab the remaining required medicines by hand. He felt his medical skills were improving rapidly, even comparable to his father's. Putting all the medicines together, Melvin picked up the scale and weighed them. It was exactly 753 grams. Just as I thought. The patient's pain should begin to subside after the first dose and be completely eradicated by the 5th. Besides the knee pain, the patient also has blood-related diseases, which should be cured as well. He packed the pile of herbs into a large paper bag and handed it to the old man. Add 3 bowls of water, bring to a boil, and take in 5 doses. Your leg will be able to walk normally again. Just like a young man, walking 10 kilometers won't be a problem. The old man stood up in a hurry. Being too excited, he almost fell to the ground but was caught by Melvin. Watching the old man struggle to pull a few copper pennies from his pocket, he gave a gentle push, moving the old man's hand back. It's free today. Chapter 53, Heading to Backland. Open black lens bracket. Remember this site's domain name. Visit Taiwan Novels for the most complete collection. Close black lens bracket. In the captain's cabin of the Deep Blue Flyer, Li Meng, Elena, and Xiao Dixie were sitting around a table. In the center of the table sat a wooden clock, its brass casing polished to a brilliant shine. Just moments ago, number 4 had summoned No. 9521, number 3006, and Li Meng to issue a new mission, ordering the 3 of them to enter Backland together. Number 4 also relayed news from the forsaken land of the gods. Umbral demonic wolf Kotar was not the lord of the spirit world's contingency for awakening. He judged that this contingency was most likely in the northern continent, or perhaps even secretly captured by the Evernight goddess. Of course, as a price, all the avatars traveling from the land of betrayal to the forsaken land of the gods were killed by umbral demonic wolf Kotar this time. All dead. When Li Meng heard number 4 speak this news so indifferently, he felt a deep sense of the cruelty of fate and powerlessness. The previous times number 4 had gathered all the avatars from the land of betrayal, at least 100 of them had spoken up. In the blink of an eye, they had completely vanished. Of course, they might be split off again by a powerful angel avatar, but by then, their previous memories, thoughts, and emotions would have completely disappeared. As some of the few remaining avatars in the land of betrayal, the Li Mengs were entrusted with an extremely heavy responsibility. Go to Backland and find the Lord of the Spirit World's resurrection contingency at all costs. Number 4's low, powerful voice echoed in everyone's minds, and the meeting concluded. As a reward, number 3006 finally received the Demoness of Affliction's Beander characteristic and formula he had been waiting over a decade for. Of course, number 4 also promised to send more avatars into Backland to assist in his work. Looking at the Demoness of Affliction's Beander characteristic emitting a pink glow on the table, Li Meng saw a faint glimmer of tears in the corners of No 3006's eyes. As what might be his last meal, number 9521 also received the Beander materials and formula for sequence 7, Appraiser. As the most important investment, number 4 told Li Meng that his scholar's book number 9998 sealed a worm of time he had left behind. Through this worm of time, he could briefly utilize some of the abilities of sequence 2, Trojan Horse of Destiny. This allowed Li Meng to use Scholar's book number 9998 for brief communication and exchange between avatars. As the wielder of Scholar's book No. 9998, Li Meng would be responsible for all avatar activities within Loan from now on, summarizing information and mailing it to the avatar at Prit's port. Having obtained the Demoness of Affliction's Beander characteristic, Elena and Xiao Dixie decided to speed up and head to Prit's harbor as quickly as possible to find the supplementary materials and complete their advancement. With Li Meng and Elena taking turns providing spirituality reinforcement, the Deep Blue Flyer took only 3 days to reach Prit's harbor from Tiana. Given the three's identity issues, they could only dock the ship at a nearby private port. Number 9521 would guard the vessel, while Li Meng and Elena would head to Prit's harbor and take a steam train to reach Backland. Second floor, Daffodil Street, Tingen City, Ahawa County, Kingdom of Loan. Mr. Hanged Man is truly a man of his word, performing the ritual right after the tarot club ended. But why is he enveloped in a layer of bluish-black mist? Klein recalled responding to the prayer rituals of the Hanged Man and Miss Justice from above the gray fog. He found that he could clearly see Miss Justice, a girl in a white robe with smooth, beautiful blonde hair, standing before 4 flickering flames, bowing respectfully and chanting continuously. From the distorted images, he could even vaguely recognize Miss Justice. In contrast, Mr. Hanged Man's entire environment was blurred, surrounded by mist. Klein could only hear his voice and could not clearly see the details of the ritual being performed. He wasn't sure which situation was normal, or if it was because Miss Justice was only sequence 9, the same as himself, that he could see her clearly. But he hadn't obtained any items from Mr. Hanged Man yet, so he couldn't perform a direct divination. For now, Mr. Hanged Man hadn't shown any ill intent. At most, he just wanted to make a trade with Miss Justice, and Klein had benefited from it as well. Everyone had their own secrets, and since they didn't know each other offline, it was better not to pry unnecessarily. He had already made up his mind to maintain the current situation for now and consider other matters once he became stronger. Tiana Church of the Night Police Headquarters. Loic, the Nighthawk captain in a gray trench coat, was patiently questioning Li Meng's former landlord, Mr. Jared Hodgson. After using Beander abilities like dream entry and spirit mediumship, he finally confirmed that this seemingly generous landlord knew nothing about Beyonders. He had simply been tempted because the young foreigner had paid a year's rent in one go and seemed to have no status or social connections. He planned to have the man arrested as a cultist or scare him away. His target was originally that £30 of rent, and getting a £50 reward for the report would be an unexpected bonus. While leafing through the man's dreams, he even discovered that Jared Hodgson was involved in several crimes, using various frauds to acquire wealth that did not belong to him. "All right, you may leave." The Nighthawk captain's gentle voice sounded in Mr. Jarrett's ear. Jared Hodgson picked up his hat and cane, and just as he reached the police station entrance, he suddenly saw the young policeman, the one who had taken his statement when he first reported the case. "Excuse me, sir, there are some matters we need your cooperation with." The young man extended his right hand, blocking Jarrett's path, and spoke politely. Loic used dream entry again to check Li Meng's neighbors, only to find they knew nothing about him. The so-called testimonies all originated from Mr. Jared Hodgson, a Beander of mysterious origins. While Loic was pondering the sequence of events, a young man with skin as pale as if he had never seen the sun pushed open the iron door of the interrogation room and walked in. "Captain, the Church of Storms hasn't found any clues. Their Beyonders are searching the various docks, but they haven't seen any similar Beyonders coming or going." "How about Niels? Has his divination result come out?" Loic stared into the young man's pale eyes, seemingly wanting to know more results. "Niels's divination has been constantly interfered with. He's only sequence 9, so it's hard for him to counter mid-sequence anti-divination." As of now, his divination results indicate the target has already left, but it's hard to tell if this is a misdirection or if he's truly gone. The young man looked at Loic, his tone somewhat helpless. Record it all and report it to the Holy Cathedral. What about the tumbleweed found in the basement? Keep it at Charnus Gate for now and have Niels register it. This is definitely a main ingredient for some sequence potion, perhaps we can find some clues from it. Loic smoothed his forehead, which had few hairs left, put on his half-top silk hat, and left the police station. Chapter 54, The Subway. At the quiet little harbor, the three of them bid a reluctant farewell, as if they were the best of friends in the world. As soon as he turned his head, Li Meng found that Elena had already disappeared, leaving only number 9521 still standing at the bow, showing a simple and honest smile while waving his arm vigorously. Is that necessary? It's not like I'm borrowing money. Li Meng spent 2 sol by the roadside to buy a low-in-color map and several local newspapers, then took a rental carriage straight to the steam train station at Pritz Harbor. Due to being tracked by the Nighthawks, Li Meng had lost all his luggage, leaving only 3 mystical items in a wallet containing just 13 pounds. A rumbling sound echoed in every corner of the platform as a massive, monster-like steam locomotive pulled over 20 carriages and slowly came to a stop beside the platform. Wearing a brown jacket and red gloves, Li Meng squeezed onto the carriage with the bustling crowd. He had bought a standing ticket and stood all the way into Backland. At Pritz Harbor, there was a steam train roughly every 10 minutes, but even so, every carriage was still packed to the brim. Li Meng arrived at Backland Central Station punctually at 9:50. Along the way, he dodged 7 or 8 pairs of hands reaching for his wallet, and incidentally transferred the wealth from the owners of those hands into his own wallet. The Dream Stealer's ability is really useful. Using a Sequence 5 Beander ability on petty thieves like those on the train, is that considered a dimensional reduction strike? After getting off the carriage, Li Meng turned into a nearby garden and found the chimney towering in the center. According to the text on the map, this was the location of the Backland subway station. He took out his wallet and counted. He now had 17 pounds, 12 sol, and 9 penny, plus a few loose copper pennies. This was all sponsored by those enthusiastic thieves on the train. He hoped there would be such helpful people on the subway as well. Li Meng counted again, carefully tucked the pound notes into his inner pocket, and put the remaining change into his wallet. Better to be careful. The Backland subway is surely a holy land for those of the thief pathway to digest their potions. During the long journey across the sea, he had repeatedly considered his plan of action after arriving in Backland. On the surface, Li Meng's best choice now was to find Miss Justice. Even if that young lady let just a little wealth slip through her fingers, it would be enough for him to reach his goal in one step and live the life of a tycoon. But a man's dignity ultimately prevented Li Meng from taking that step. To ensure his safety, it was best to avoid the headquarters of the Church of the Night, the Church of Storms, and the Church of the Steam. Countless predecessors had already proven with their lives that these 3 churches all possessed some form of god-descending technique. As long as he was exposed to their sight, he wouldn't be far from turning into a sealed artifact or Beander materials. Li Meng had read in Scholar's Book number 9998 that even if Amon's avatar had no Beander characteristic and was just a tiny split body, the worm of time left behind after death was top-tier material for making spirituality charms. A worm of time split from a Sequence 4 would have a market price of at least 100 pounds, while a worm of time split from an angel could affect Sequence 2, with a market price of at least 2,000 pounds. And the worm of time split from a Sequence 1 inside Li Meng's body, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a priceless treasure. This was also the reason why quite a few of Amon's avatars were brutally killed. After all, no one disliked walking pounds. Excluding the North Borough where, St. Samuel's Church, the headquarters of the Church of the Goddess of Night's Backland Diocese, was located, the Empress Borough where the royal family resided, and the West Borough where the top wealthy merchants lived, Li Meng could theoretically go to any of the remaining places. Li Meng considered all the Beander abilities on his gloves and found that there weren't actually many choices. A faceless's soul could allow him to change his appearance and directly replace someone, but the important figures of Loan were all protected by Beanders. One mistake would attract the attention of the royal family, the church, or the military. Right pointing arrow. Furthermore, Beanders of the thief pathway, especially the reputation of the Amons, were already akin to rats crossing the street. Once exposed, it would surely trigger a manhunt from multiple parties. After all, wealth can be lost through gambling, lost through investment, spent on games, or swindled away due to lack of skill, but being stolen from, no one would tolerate that. Thinking of this, another plot point surged into Li Meng's mind. 15 Minsk Street, Sherwood Borough, terraced house, weekly rent of 18 sol. Klein's residence after he went to Backland. It's only July 15th now, little K shouldn't be heading to Backland until after September. A sense of mischief couldn't help but rise in Li Meng's heart. What would happen if he booked the house at 15 Minsk Street in advance? No, the plot can't be messed up any further. Alger didn't participate in the tarot club, which I feel is already a deviation. If I mess with the plot further, I don't know if it'll be good or bad, but it will definitely head in an unknown direction. Although I don't know why I've forgotten many plot points and details, I still have some soothsayer advantages after all. I can't just destroy them carelessly. As for his purpose in coming to Backland, Li Meng was very clear: find the main materials for Shadow Ascetic, and advance to Sequence 7. Before becoming a Sequence 5, Shepherd, the combat power of his pathway was very concerning. Developing stealthily was the only right path. As for finding a proper job or something, Li Meng had long ago had enough of the 996 and 007 life in his previous world. Moreover, work never makes one rich. In fact, over 49% of a Beyander's wealth comes from transactions and killings between Beyonders, and another 49% comes from using Beyander abilities to obtain extra wealth from ordinary people. The former is represented by various pirates and adventurers, as well as participants in various Beyander gatherings. While the Beyander squads of the major churches, and the Beyonders of the nobility and military, often tend to use Beyander abilities to provide services to obtain wealth. Trying to earn enough money to buy Beyander materials through an ordinary job is like trying to catch the reflection of the moon in a bucket of water. The reason those ancient Beyander families can monopolize certain pathways is certainly due to the monopoly of knowledge, but even more so because they themselves control the potion formulas and materials, making the cost of becoming a Beyander relatively low. Meanwhile, an ordinary person might save for a lifetime just to buy a single formula. This further blocks the possibility of normal people becoming Beyonders. After all, although ordinary people earn little, they have many places to spend it. Even if they know news of a Beyander pathway, they don't have that much spare money to experiment. If a salaried worker took out a loan or even paid in installments to buy a potion formula, others would surely think he had lost his mind. Li Meng worked hard to recall the plot while following the deep downward slope to the ticket window. Since it was already late at night and the subway was about to welcome its last train, there was almost no one at the ticket booth. A ticket seller with beautiful blonde hair was slumped over the desk at the window, dozing off. Li Meng's gaze swept over the wooden price board hanging near the window. Peak hours 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., every 10 minutes, otherwise every 15 minutes. First class seat 6 penny, second class 4 penny, third class 3 penny. Round trips are 9, 6, and 5 penny respectively. Annual passes are £8 for first class, £5 10 sol for second class, and no annual pass for third class. First class. The ticket seller forced herself to wake up, tore off a ticket, stamped it, and handed it to Li Meng. Then she gave a yawn and slumped back onto the desk. Li Meng found the line heading to Sherwood Borough. After passing a not-so-strict inspection, he walked down the stairs to the platform and found the position corresponding to first class according to the markings on the ground. Chapter 55, Tasok South Bank Hostel. The last subway train was very quiet, with very few passengers in the entire carriage, giving Li Meng no extra opportunities to practice his dream stealer abilities. No. 7 Iron Gate Street, Backland Bridge District. This was the address Li Meng had chosen for himself. It wasn't that he hadn't considered the Sherwood Borough that Klein had chosen, which had relatively better security, was easy to hide in, and had cheaper rent. After some thought, he ultimately chose the Backland Bridge District, where security was relatively poor, it was easy to hide, and the rent was more expensive. Poor security provides room for a Beyander to operate. Of course, a more important reason was that behind No. 7 Iron Gate Street was the wide Tasok River, where ships could arrive directly from the sea. Number 9521 was still on the ship, waiting for Li Meng to provide the next plan of action. Valuable human resources cannot be wasted. There aren't many simple Amons avatars like this left nowadays. Although the Tasok River's waters were high and the waves were rough, making it difficult for ships to dock without a proper pier, in the eyes of a mid-sequence Beander, this was no longer a major problem. As long as the ships were utilized properly, the shipping industry would never lack a golden list. Just looking at how the 4 countries of the northern continent supported the 4 kings and 7 admirals on the sea, along with tens of thousands of pirates of all sizes, one could see the potential of maritime transport. In this chaotic era, only sufficient profit would drive so many people to take such risks. Furthermore, the security here was poor, with numerous thieves, rampant gangs, and various security personnel who seamlessly switched between being police and robbers. It would be good to make a small fortune in their name. How could a qualified Amon's avatar be destitute? Punishing evil is equivalent to promoting good. If evil is not removed, good cannot flourish. Li Meng estimated his own strength while browsing the news in the newspaper. Crime cases in the Backland Bridge district, noble gossip in the Empress Borough, legends of sudden wealth in the Hillsden district, and the miracles and myths of the 3 great churches filled the majority of Backland's newspapers and periodicals. As for this Backland Daily, the Backland Bridge district contributed 3 major theft cases, 1 serial murder case, 1 large-scale mass brawl, 1 fraud case, and 1 disappearance case. One of the theft cases involved an amount as high as £500. A merchant who had come to Backland to stock up on goods had just withdrawn £500 from the Loan Development Bank and headed to the pier to pay part of the freight and the costs for the dockworkers' labor. Between the time he got off the hired carriage and walked the few hundred meters to the pier, those £500 mysteriously vanished under the protection of numerous bodyguards. This trade merchant from Bayham cursed the thief with the most vicious language in the Backland Daily and expressed a willingness to pay 30% of the amount as a reward to anyone who could recover the money. If the freight and handling costs can reach £500, the goods must be worth at least £10,000 or more. It's impossible for such a wealthy merchant to know nothing about Beander phenomena. Li Meng read the newspaper while pulling out his pocket watch. It was already 11 p.m. Forget it, I'll stay at a hotel for the night first. Li Meng put away his pocket watch and walked toward the nearest hotel, the Tasok South Bank Inn. Isn't this name a bit too strange? Pushing open the dark door of the small inn, he saw a middle-aged man wrapped entirely in a quilt, lying on a sofa. Hearing the sound of Li Meng pushing the door, the man put down the book in his hand, walked to a small table near the wall, pulled out a wooden stool, and sat down. Alone? The middle-aged man asked with bleary eyes. Yes. The middle-aged man rummaged through a cabinet, found a key, and threw it to Li Meng. 201, 4th floor on the left, 1 sol. After the man finished speaking, he walked back to the sofa and lay down again. Li Meng pulled out a 1 sol note and placed it on the table. Looking back, the man was already lying on the sofa with a newspaper covering his face. So casual. The excuses I prepared regarding my identity were completely unused. Li Meng complained inwardly while taking the key. The entire room emitted a scent of decay. Li Meng climbed up to the 2nd floor along the old stairs and couldn't help but sneeze. After finding his room and locking the door, Li Meng resisted the urge to sleep and set up a wall of spirituality in the room before washing up, undressing, and going to sleep. Sleeping in a daze until the middle of the night, his spirituality was triggered. He quietly opened his eyes and saw the lock cylinder turning slightly as a thin figure opened the door with a key and walked in softly. Li Meng closed his eyes and activated the shepherd's glove number 9998 hidden under the quilt. With the assistance of the soul of the hypnotist on the glove, Li Meng could see the figure's actions very clearly. He was wearing a pair of very thin soft-soled cloth shoes and walked almost silently to where Li Meng had placed his clothes, starting to rummage through them. Li Meng watched quietly as he rummaged through all the pockets of the clothes, finding that wallet and the 11 sol 9 penny inside. The figure spat disdainfully on it, then took the 11 sol 9 penny, and a few copper penny. Backland people are truly hospitable, giving such a big gift on the first day. Once the figure turned around, Li Meng activated psychological invisibility from the glove. After rummaging through Li Meng's clothes and wallet, the figure decisively tiptoed out of the room. Li Meng quietly followed behind the figure and walked out of the room. The figure reached the corridor, pulled out a bunch of keys from his pocket, gently turned the lock cylinder, and locked Li Meng's door again. This service is truly thoughtful. By the faint moonlight shining through the window, Li Meng saw that the figure was wearing a black tight-fitting suit, with a black hood covering his features. The man in black seemed to have a target in mind, counting the rooms one by one. At room 205, he pulled out a key again, opened the door, and walked in. Li Meng also quietly followed him in. Psychological invisibility is truly useful. There was actually an inexplicable thrill of voyeurism. By this time, Li Meng's sleepiness had completely vanished, and he watched the man in black's operations with full concentration. In room 205, two people were squeezed onto the bed, with their coats placed on a clothes rack. The man in black rummaged through the coats but seemed to find nothing, so he reached his hand into the duo's quilt. In Backland in the July summer, the late night was already slightly chilly. The two had wrapped themselves tightly in the quilt back to back. The man in black gently reached his hand in to rummage around. He seemed to have found something, suddenly stopped his hand, and his arm began to slowly move outward. At that moment, one of them suddenly let out a sound of confusion, then rolled over and swung his arm heavily. The man in black displayed extraordinary agility and extremely fast reaction speed at this moment, ducking down and dodging the arm that swung past his scalp. After this scare, the man in black no longer had the heart to continue rummaging. He carefully backed out of the room and locked the door. Li Meng followed the man in black as he continued to rummage. Whenever he found something, Li Meng would quietly startle the person on the bed awake. The man in black was also well prepared, quickly hiding so that he wasn't discovered by the travelers. After several rooms in a row, with Li Meng's help, the man in black had gained nothing. What the hell is going on today? The man in black stood in the corridor, standing dazed for a long while, seemingly unable to accept today's lack of gains. Chapter 56, Iron Pliers, Kid. Iron Pliers, Kid was one of the most famous thieves on Iron Gate Street. If one weren't being conservative, the title of one of could even be removed. The former Lowen Mint used to strictly inspect every process. People were only allowed to enter and leave wearing a pair of linen shorts without any pockets. Countless thieves had studied the gold and silver inside, and many had even attempted it, but none of them met a good end. Kid's claim to fame was stealing a silver ingot that was already in a molten state in the blast furnace, using an unknown method. When this still steaming silver ingot was handed to an executioner of the Zimong party, the warrior from the highlands showed a rare expression of admiration. "Your hand is harder than iron pliers." The executioner grabbed Kid's right hand and raised it high. Among the Highlanders who worshipped the god of combat, this signified acceptance and becoming a friend. It should be noted that before this, Highlanders and locals were like fire and water. The valiant and fearless Highlanders were engaged in high-profit, high-risk businesses full of violence and vice, such as robbery, fighting, and gambling, and they looked down on small-scale wealth seekers, like Kid. Kid's parents were just porters at the docks. From the time Kid was born, they could barely keep the family from starving. When Kid was 6, he happened to pick a wallet from a passerby's pocket. His parents were ecstatic, finding 3 pounds, 4 soles, and 9 pennies inside, which greatly improved the family's life. Kid also received 9 pennies of discretionary funds. From then on, Kid's skills improved day by day. He didn't even want to go to Sunday school, which only cost a copper penny a week. It just so happened that Lowen later underwent educational reform, changing Sunday schools into public elementary schools, which required 6 days of classes and a fee of 3 pennies. He felt he had saved a fortune. Kid and his parents rarely agreed, believing that such study was a waste of both money and time, a waste of life. From then on, Kid wandered the streets and alleys of Backland all day, looking for suitable targets. Although he had never received any professional training in the thieving industry, results spoke for themselves. His talent was utilized to the fullest, and he became a well-known leader in the industry for attaining wealth. The mint theft that made him famous earned him a great reputation on Iron Gate Street. He already had enough money to spend. He was a pure individual, completely detached from both refined and vulgar tastes. He gave a portion of his stolen wealth to his parents, and after paying enough protection money, the rest was deposited into an anonymous bank account. No one had ever seen him place a bet in a casino, though he frequented them. Nor had anyone seen him order even the cheapest Lolongchi wine at a bar, though he was a regular there. Even less had anyone seen him get intimate with any prostitute at the Red Theater, or keep a lovely mistress, though he was also a frequent guest there. The reason he had enjoyed a peaceful life for so many years despite his fame was due to his extraordinary sense of crisis and profound insight into the rules of Backland's underworld, formed from years of struggling in society since childhood. He had already completed a significant job during the day, but habit drove him, making it hard for him to sleep at night. He came to his own backyard, the Tasok South Bank Inn. He was always very relaxed and natural working in such cheap inns, and the Tasok South Bank Inn was just like his own home. Ever since he could climb through windows at age 9, he had been conducting various experiments at the inn, to the point where he had a full set of keys for every room. To save money, the owner of the Tasok South Bank Inn, Mr. Grady, had never thought of changing the room keys since he opened the inn, even though thefts occurred frequently. Of course, anyone who could open an inn in the chaotic Backland Bridge district was definitely a shrewd businessman. He had long understood the key to the situation and skillfully reached an agreement with Iron Pliers, Kid. The innkeeper would observe the value of the guests' belongings and assess the risk, while Kid was responsible for taking the goods. After deducting the protection money for the local sheriff and the Highlanders, they would redistribute the wealth. This suddenly made the cheap inn's income anything but cheap, and the innkeeper, Mr. Grady, also lived a better life thanks to Iron Pliers, Kid. And this was just one of Iron Pliers, Kid's countless partners. In bars, the Red Theater, and casinos, he had numerous similar partners. When these people spotted a fat sheep, but wanted to maintain their own reputation, they would hand the shearing work over to Kid. But today, in this all too familiar inn, he suddenly had a strange feeling of being watched. It was as if a pair of eyes were constantly staring at him. Yet no matter how he observed, he couldn't find anything unusual. Kid was never a cowardly person, nor was he prone to unnecessary anxiety or sensitivity. At the Mint, even with many people watching, he could immerse himself in his work with total relaxation, treating the patrolling soldiers as if they didn't exist. But now, he felt a threat, yet he couldn't find the source. He tried to check covertly through mirrors and various reflective objects, but he still couldn't discover the owner of those eyes. This sense of danger forced him to end his operation early. It wasn't until he reached the second-floor corridor that he recalled the anomaly of this time. Too many of the people sleeping in those beds had woken up. In his career, he had encountered countless instances where people sleeping in bed suddenly woke up halfway through his work, or owners returned home. In these situations, an ordinary person might have panicked and been discovered, caught, and eventually thrown into prison or even lost their life. But Kid was different. He could skillfully handle various emergencies and even rehearse them in his mind, which allowed him to remain calm and safely leave the scene numerous times. Was I too loud, or were they woken up by someone, or were they never asleep at all? Kid's heart began to pound violently. He ran down the stairs and saw Mr. Grady waiting to tally the loot. Kid made a discreet gesture, his hands twisted and intertwined as if they were bound. Mr. Grady understood immediately and lay down on the old sofa to continue dozing. Kid walked out of the inn's main door, immediately turned into an inconspicuous alley by the roadside, and after a few turns, vanished into the vast night. Chapter 57, Glasses. Watching that thin, small figure walk away, Li Meng ended his psychological invisibility and returned to the Tasok South Bank Inn to lie down and rest again. This time, he slept particularly soundly. Early the next morning, Li Meng got up early, packed his things, and quietly left the Tasok South Bank Inn, heading for No. 7 Iron Gate Street in the Backland Bridge district. Besides being convenient for transportation, Iron Gate Street had something very important to Li Meng, the Beander gathering hosted by old Mr. Eye of Wisdom. This was something he had remembered after waking up on Iron Gate Street this morning. Eye of Wisdom himself was a Sequence 7 and possessed a sealed artifact that could identify the authenticity of items. Relying on the sealed artifact, he successfully connected a group of Beyonders to exchange goods and information. Of course, there were many Beyonder gatherings, and many Beyonders and sealed artifacts with appraisal abilities. The most significant feature of the Beyonder gathering organized by Eye of Wisdom was that the organizer, Mr. Stanton, was a man with a strong sense of responsibility and order. This was mainly reflected in his deliberate screening of participants and the various methods he used to ensure their safety, using his own strength to guarantee and identify the god-forsaken items and potion formulas that appeared at the gathering. This gave the gatherings hosted by Eye of Wisdom a high level of credibility and security. Aside from Klein's Tarot Club, the Beyonder gatherings hosted by Eye of Wisdom could be said to be the safest and most reliable in the Backland area, and would also be the primary location for Li Meng to buy and sell materials in the future. Except for the agents from the 9th Organization of Military Intelligence at the gathering, almost everyone else was trustworthy. Li Meng carefully recalled the clues in his mind, but there wasn't much he could remember, only the agent who used a sheriff formula as bait and that apothecary who had gone astray. I'll settle on a place to stay first, then go to the Brave Ones bar on Iron Gate Street to find an intermediary to enter the gathering. The air in the Backland Bridge district was naturally unique. The gray air combined with the gray river water made it impossible to distinguish the boundary between them beyond 10 meters. The driver of the rental carriage Li Meng was riding in was clearly very skilled at this. With visibility less than 20 meters, he galloped the horse and arrived at number 7 Iron Gate Street from the Tassoc South Bank in less than 10 minutes. As expected, speed is a common pursuit of mankind. Li Meng stepped off the carriage with satisfaction, handed the driver to Saul, and asked in a casual tone, "Is there an underground trading market nearby? I have some goods that aren't convenient to sell directly." The driver, who was over 40, showed a simple and honest smile and pointed at himself. "No matter where you want to go, just tell us, and we will definitely get you there." The driver looked left and right at the people coming and going on the street and said in an exceptionally mysterious tone, "The Zimong party controls most of the business here. They have specialized channels where any kind of goods can be bought and sold, but you need an intermediary." The driver extended 2 fingers that could no longer be straightened due to years of handling a whip, and waved them proudly in front of Li Meng. "If you find someone else, the introduction fee is at least £1, but through me, I can give it to you for at least 2 sol cheaper. If you need anything, just let me know, I'm always around Iron Gate Street." This Zimong party has a deep control over the local ecosystem. They've already started establishing an underground order. Living on Iron Gate Street, I expect I'll be dealing with them quite often. Li Meng evaluated this land in his heart while knocking on the door of No. 7 Iron Gate Street. According to the news in the newspaper, the house owner's contact information was left here. Right pointing arrow. 77 Salmon Street, Tiana Island. Locke Laval, this natural spectator, had by now sold all the valuables in the hall and exchanged them for the materials needed for the telepathous potion. At this moment, the hall looked empty, as if it had been ransacked by bandits. Buying the formula cost £850, and buying the materials cost £700, over a decade of savings gone just like that. Even Beyonders can fall into poverty. There are so many good people in the world, they helped me gather the necessary materials so quickly. As expected, Tiana does not lack beauty and kindness, only the eyes to discover them. Locke picked up the glass bottle and began to concoct the potion. Auxiliary materials: 5 grams of chestnut sprouts, 8 grams of agrimony powder, 3 petals of pure white elf flower, 100 milliliters of pure water. Main materials: the complete pituitary gland of an adult 7-colored lizard dragon, 10 milliliters of spinal fluid from a Farsman rabbit. A few minutes later, Locke held a bottle of liquid whose luster constantly shifted, seemingly able to shine into the depths of everyone's heart. He looked at this telepathous potion, seemingly recalling a past he couldn't bear to look back on. "From now on, I want to be a happy person, drink Blue Mountain coffee, eat Fenipote noodles and daisy seafood, and invite neighbors over every day. I'll be a bright and happy Beyonder." The telepathous potion continued to shift colors in the middle of the bottle, from red to yellow, yellow to green, and green to black. Locke raised the bottle toward the air, as if making a toast to someone. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and drank the potion in one gulp. What he saw before him seemed to clear up significantly. and his spirituality increased even further, to the point where it began to dissipate in large amounts. He opened the door and looked toward number 78 next door. The withered, thin, and shrewd-looking innkeeper was craning his neck, using the daylight to observe his mysterious neighbor. Locke's dissipating spirituality uncontrollably poured into his eyes, activating his telepathous ability. What is that thing? Finally willing to come out in broad daylight. It's definitely nothing good. I should find time to go to the police station, lest I get dragged into it when something happens. Locke looked at the innkeeper, but the innkeeper's inner thoughts were constantly churning in his mind. At this moment, he felt shadows beginning to gather in his heart again, and even the sun in the sky seemed to dim a bit. Sigh, why did I gather the potion materials so quickly? I feel that after this advancement, things might become unpleasant again. Locke closed his eyes and felt the Beyonder abilities brought by the telepathous potion with his heart. After a long time, he finally opened his eyes and rummaged through the room. Finally, he found a pair of black glasses. Due to poor manufacturing craftsmanship, these glasses were full of impurities and off colors, and had been sold as a rare item by a shrewd merchant. Locke put on this crudely made pair of glasses, and his vision immediately became gray and hazy. He looked back at the innkeeper next door and found that he could no longer see any malice. Let it be. He took off the glasses, solemnly placed them in his pocket, and closed the villa's door again. The entire hall returned to darkness. Chapter 58. Are you satisfied? Chapter 58. Are you satisfied? No. 7 Iron Gate Street. The layout of the villa on Iron Gate Street was quite different from that of Empress Burrow or Swordfish Street, where Li Meng had previously lived. Aside from a small patch of green lawn at the entrance, the entire house lacked any decorative plants or flowers. It was as if any waste of land was intolerable here. Pushing open the rusty gray iron gate, there were almost no decorative items inside. The rooms weren't even partitioned. The entire first floor consisted of a single hall, a small partitioned storage room, and a washroom. Near the washroom were stairs leading to the second floor and the basement. The hall was paved directly with plain cement, devoid of any patterns or embellishments. The walls were mottled and covered with various stains. On the iron handrails of the stairs, the white paint had peeled off in large patches, revealing spots of blackish-red rust. The only thing worth mentioning about the entire place was its size. Li Meng estimated the area to be at least 200 square meters. In the center of the room, several gray pillars, as thick as round tables, supported the hall, making the house feel exceptionally empty. This was built by the Backland Construction and Development Company at the request of Duke Nigan. It served as a crop transit warehouse in Backland, supplying grain to bars and cafes near Iron Gate Street. After the corn laws were repealed, Duke Nigan abandoned a portion of the crop trade, and this warehouse fell out of use. Duke Nigan commissioned me to rent or sell it. As you can see, its location is excellent, very close to the pier, with many bars and cafes nearby. No matter what you do, you can earn more pounds than you could spend in a lifetime. Gunther Nigan, carrying a large bunch of keys, was enthusiastically introducing the rooms of No. 7 Iron Gate Street to Li Meng. He was a slightly plump middle-aged man who spoke incessantly in a standard Backland accent, appearing exceptionally energetic. To be honest, all of His Grace's properties on Iron Gate Street have been entrusted to me. I can tell at a glance that you have a keen eye. You're sure to make a fortune in Backland. For such a prime location and such a fine house, His Grace originally wanted £15 a month. But I'm a straightforward and generous man. If you pay a year's rent at once, I can take it upon myself to reduce it to £150 a year. I'll cover the difference to His Grace myself. Gunther Nigan, speaking with a standard Backland accent, had a face full of sincerity. His expression of concern for Li Meng's interests was so convincing it could make one wonder if he was a long-lost relative. If it weren't for the hypnotist soul within the shepherd's gloves No. 9998 I'm wearing, which can detect lies, I would have been swindled out of all my assets by you already, Li Meng grumbled inwardly. His lie detection ability showed that from the beginning until now, the only truth this Mr. Gunther had spoken was, very close to the pier. How did he manage to intersperse one truth among 9 lies? This was something even Amon would find difficult to achieve. Seeing Li Meng's unmoved expression, Gunther Nigan began his introduction again in his standard Backland accent. The second floor has 7 living rooms. The furniture inside was once used in His Grace's manor and possesses valuable historical significance. If you wish to use that furniture, just give me another 150 pounds. Li Meng followed Mr. Gunther up the dusty stairs to the second floor. On the second floor, except for the leftmost bedroom door which was tightly shut, all the other doors were wide open. There was nothing left inside but empty rooms and shards of broken glass on the floor. Half of the glass in the bay windows was gone, and the remaining half was covered in dust. Well, are you satisfied? Mr. Gunther looked into Li Meng's eyes and asked in the most sincere tone, as if facing his best friend. It was a tone that left no room for doubt. Could this man also be a Beander? I wonder if he's a telepathist or a swindler. Li Meng activated his spirit vision and found that the colors of Mr. Gunther's aura perfectly matched the standards of an ordinary person. The reds were red, the purples were purple, the blues were blue, and the whites were white, with average luster and appropriate thickness. Not a Beander. At that thought, Li Meng suddenly had an inspiration. Mr. Gunther, this house is your own, isn't it? Meeting Mr. Gunther's sincere gaze, Li Meng asked back with equal sincerity. Oh, a friend of mine, an executioner from the Zimong party, told me. Upon hearing, executioner, Gunther Nigan's body twitched involuntarily, though he quickly masked it. What are you trying to do? Although the Zimong party has some influence, it's nothing compared to Duke Nigan. Mr. Gunther's sincerity seemed to falter, and a hint of tension began to emerge. Let me take a guess. A man using Duke Nigan's surname, living in a standalone villa on Iron Gate Street, without hiring any servants or coachmen, and unable even to keep the rooms clean. He published an advertisement in the newspaper but was afraid to reveal his address, so he insisted on staying in this room that's waiting to be sold. All right, I've said my piece. Now it's your turn. Li Meng watched Mr. Gunther's plump face with interest, seeing his expression shift from relaxed sincerity to tense defensiveness. Mr. Julius, you've truly exceeded my expectations. Please forgive my presumption. On Iron Gate Street, one cannot live in a villa like this without sufficient strength. I've seen many people come to Iron Gate Street to make their fortune, only to leave in disappointment, some even staying in the Tassoc River forever. In fact, I am one of them. It's only been a few months, but the Zimong party has made it impossible for my business to continue. I have no choice but to rent out or sell this house and leave Backland, this heartbreaking place. Li Meng maintained the lie detection ability of the gloves, quietly watching Mr. Gunther's performance. Honestly, the abilities of the spectator pathway are truly well suited for negotiation or communication. Being stared at by a spectator, Mr. Gunther's performance began to grow strained. Soon, he could no longer maintain that humble and sincere smile. Fine, I am indeed the owner of this house. However, an executioner from the Zimong party has set his sights on the villa. He wants to buy it at a price I cannot accept. In truth, I have no relationship with Duke Nigan, he doesn't even know me. I don't want to lose my villa, but I'm unable to oppose him. I could only follow a friend's advice and send my family out of Backland, then rent the house out, hoping for someone strong enough to handle this matter. Unfortunately, most locals know the situation here. Only foreign merchants have enough pounds to rent it. Actually, I was hoping for a wealthy merchant from Bayam or Balam, but I believe you also have the strength to deal with this. Chapter 59. You are simply too clever. After Mr. Gunther presented his proof of home ownership, Li Meng happily signed the house rental contract with him. Open black lens bracket. Remember this site's domain name. Go to kn.com for Taiwan novels. Super powerful close black lens bracket. £150 a year, with full rights to use the house. After 1 year, Li Meng has the right to continue leasing at the same price. If Li Meng intends to purchase, the rent can be converted into the house transfer fee. Starting from July 16, 1349, and ending on July 16, 1350. Both parties signed their names on the contract with satisfaction and pressed their thumbprints. Mr. Gunther quickly packed his things and left in a rental carriage, leaving Li Meng with a large ring of keys. Holding the ring of keys, Li Meng locked the front door and went to a nearby grocery store to buy enough daily necessities, including 3 sets of toiletries and bedding, as well as common kitchenware, a sofa, a table, and the like. By the time everything was finished, Li Meng opened his pocket watch. It was already 2:30 in the afternoon. Sitting on the newly bought sofa, Li Meng counted his remaining pounds. Of the 182 pounds he had earned just this morning, only 6 pounds and 3 sols remained. Moving house once really breaks the bank. Watching the clock hand point to 3 in the afternoon, that familiar crimson appeared before Li Meng's eyes. "Good afternoon, Mr. Fool." "Good afternoon, Mr. Hanged Man." Miss Justice's familiar and cheerful voice rang in Li Meng's ears, and his entire mood seemed to brighten up. The two of them congratulated Mr. Fool together, praising the success of Klein's leave-taking ritual. Audrey submitted another page of Russell's diary as payment for the Fool's guidance on the acting method. Li Meng had already exchanged information about the Antigonus family, so he didn't need to submit notes for now. Speaking of which, isn't this too much of a loss? Watching Klein quietly reading Russell's diary, Li Meng suddenly thought of this kind of selling nothing for something operation. What Mr. Fool sold was the content of Russell's diary, which cost him nothing. Meanwhile, what he himself paid was solid, real information. In this kind of business with zero capital and high profit, Miss Justice had the money to withstand it, but he would be drained sooner or later. When that time came, he might be kicked aside and directly meet his end. He couldn't exactly say while Mr. Fool was explaining that he already knew, didn't want to listen, didn't need to listen, and that he should just be blocked out. This information fee was unavoidable. He had to think of a secure way to solve this problem to prevent falling into heavy debt in the future. While he was thinking about how to handle this matter, he noticed Miss Justice's gaze secretly and very covertly observing Mr. Fool. A spectator really is different. If this continues, the secret will be out sooner or later. He wondered if Klein would be exposed first or if he would be the one to slip up. However, Klein being exposed would only be social death, while if he were exposed, it would trigger a divine descent. Mr. Fool's greatest enemy had already quietly infiltrated the Tarot Club, becoming one of the 2 current pillars of the Tarot Club. Thinking of this, Li Meng coughed lightly, as if even a spirit body could have an uncomfortable throat. Reminded by the sound, Audrey suddenly snapped back to her senses, turned her head in a panic, and pretended to gaze at the illusory crimson stars one after another. Klein, who was holding Russell's diary and reading seriously, gave a slight hand tremor. He looked left and right, finding that Mr. Hanged Man was still the same as usual, eyes fixed on the surface of the long bronze table. Meanwhile, Miss Justice had a leisurely look as if admiring the scenery, just short of humming a light melody. Could it be that there's something special about those crimson stars that I haven't discovered? Are spectators more sensitive to them? Klein thought for a while, then continued reading Russell's diary as if he hadn't heard anything. Mr. Fool read it several times, then cast his gaze back toward Justice and the Hanged Man, saying with a slight apology, "I've kept you waiting." Seemingly to cover up her distraction just now, Miss Justice looked toward Mr. Hanged Man, and asked somewhat seriously, "Where can I find members of the Psychology Alchemists?" It seemed Audrey hadn't gained any extra harvest from Beander gatherings. However, this was normal. Even the agents of the Military Special Operations Department 9th Division took a long time to fish out Hugh Dilch, and the formula had been listed at the Beander gathering organized by Mr. A for several months before seeing any results. As for the Psychology Alchemists, who were famous for being cautious and loving to operate behind the scenes, if a random formula could expose them, it could only be said they had drunk the wrong potion. Although separated by the gray fog, Audrey's spectator abilities could still function somewhat. Since the gray fog around Mr. Hanged Man wasn't that thick, she could roughly see Li Meng's general outline. Mr. Hanged Man is very relaxed, seemingly thinking about some interesting problem. So, what is he thinking about? His current body movements seem to be concealing something, but I can't tell what it is. Right, at the last gathering, Mr. Hanged Man emphasized money. Although he pretended not to care much, every time he mentioned the word pound, his tone would involuntarily become heavier and more hurried. Mr. Hanged Man needs pounds. Audrey, you really are too clever, even from such a tiny detail, you can reach the correct conclusion. Mr. Hanged Man once said that dogs are particularly suited for the spectator pathway. Now it seems I'm not bad either. If Susie were placed in the Tarot Club, she might not necessarily be able to see this. Does Susie even know what money is? What am I thinking? Why would I think of Susie? If a dog appeared in the tarot club, Mr. Fool would definitely be angry. Audrey took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm the messy thoughts in her mind, but no matter how hard she tried, the image of a large golden retriever sitting upright on a high-backed chair wouldn't go away. The most terrifying thing was that the dog kept using woof, woof, woof sounds to express opinions. If you believe this information is very important, I can pay a reward to obtain it. How embarrassing. Li Meng pretended not to hear that sentence and began introducing the psychology alchemists to Miss Justice. I currently hold 3 clues regarding the psychology alchemists. Consider which one you need to contact. The Hanged Man is really impressive. Others don't even have a single clue, yet he offers 3 as soon as he makes a move. Audrey was now used to it. She remembered that during their first meeting, Mr. Hanged Man had told her he had 5 potion formulas. Perhaps just like with the potion formulas last time, he was merely a middleman. Audrey and Klein comforted themselves while starting to listen to Li Meng introduce the clues for the psychology alchemists. The first clue comes from Tingen City, Ahawa County, Loan. Dast Gudrian, a doctor at the Greenhill Asylum. He frequently appears in the local underground trading markets to purchase various Viander materials. Li Meng thought for a moment and continued, since I don't know your current address, I can only give all that I know. This Mr. Dast Gudrian is currently the weakest among the psychology alchemists members you can contact. In other words, he is the safest for you. Moreover, because he often operates alone, the chance for a stranger to contact him is very high. This would be more natural and less likely to arouse suspicion. There's actually a member of the psychology alchemists in Tingen. Hearing this news, Audrey didn't think much of it, but Mr. Fool, sitting at the head of the long bronze table and shrouded in mysterious gray fog, felt a surge of shock in his heart. That gentleman I met in the underground market of the Evil Dragon Bar in Tingen, the one in a black formal suit, wearing a half-top hat of the same color, holding a silver inlaid cane, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, and having a very refined air, could he be a member of the psychology alchemists, or even that Dast Gudrian? Why does the Hanged Man know so much about the psychology alchemists? Did he deliberately point out the address in Tingen to test me, or was it an accident? However, judging by his familiarity with the Antigonus family, he seems to have an understanding of many secret organizations. Shrouded by the gray fog, Klein thought it over and finally reached the correct conclusion. Mr. Hanged Man is just short of money. I'll look at the other options he's provided first, then decide whether to act. Even so, a demon in his heart kept screaming, I know this. Finally, something I know has appeared. Miss Justice, choose this one quickly. I have clues, I can sell them to you. After a slight pause to wait for Audrey to note down the address and name, Li Meng began to introduce the next clue. A jewelry designer in Backland, Mr. Hilbert Alucard. He is a talented artist, and there is evidence suggesting he is also a member of the psychology alchemists. The reason I've put him as the second choice is that he possesses a fairly high social status, making it difficult for ordinary people to contact him. Furthermore, there might be a demigod of the psychology alchemists in Backland, so there is a certain risk of exposure. Of course, high risk inevitably comes with high rewards. Contacting the psychology alchemists in Backland makes it easier to obtain opportunities for advancement and access more core-level secrets. As Li Meng spoke, his tone slowed, and his voice became soft and supple. If you are of noble birth, with enough money or an aristocratic title to support you, this would be an excellent choice. After hearing the Hanged Man's introduction, Klein immediately knew that this money probably had nothing to do with him. Oh my, was this prepared specifically for me? Audrey had been worried that it would be inappropriate for an earl's daughter to suddenly run off to a rural place like Tingen. She hadn't expected a better option to appear in the blink of an eye. Noble birth, enough money, an aristocratic title, isn't that talking about me? Although Audrey had already set her goal, she felt she should continue listening, just in case there was something better. The third clue is more dangerous. It concerns a high-ranking member of the psychology alchemists. With your current strength, if you were to encounter him, you would likely be seen through immediately, having all your thoughts and ideas read, turning you completely into his puppet. Of course, high risk inevitably brings high rewards. If successful, your future potion formulas and materials won't be a problem. However, I still suggest you consider it carefully, very carefully. Take a gamble, turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. For some reason, after hearing Li Meng's third clue, this classic quote from before his transmigration involuntarily surfaced in Klein's mind. He wondered if Emperor Russell had turned it into one of his own sayings. I hope Miss Justice doesn't choose this path. I'm only a sequence 9. If I'm targeted by a demigod, the outcome will be miserable. Never mind protecting others, I'd be at risk of exposure myself. After hearing the third clue, Audrey set her goal without hesitation. The third clue is too dangerous. I'm still young, I'll wait until I've grown stronger before using it. That's right, with Mr. Fool's protection and Mr. Hanged Man's resources, why should I take risks? I just want more fun in my life, not to fight with my life on the line. Thinking of this, Audrey bowed slightly and said, I have made my choice. Thank you for the information. How many pounds do I need to pay? Li Meng had already planned the pricing. 1,000 pounds. Very well, I will pay it directly into your anonymous account. That's 1,000 pounds already. After I advance to seer, my weekly salary is only 6 pounds. It would take 3 years of not eating or drinking to save up 1,000 pounds. Now, with weekly rent plus daily expenses totaling at least 2 pounds, and some irregular extra costs, it would actually take 5 years to save that much. The captain said that after advancing to sequence 8, Clown, I can receive 10 pounds a week. Even so, 1,000 pounds would take at least 2 years. Klein quickly calculated his income and expenses in his head, finally realizing with frustration that it was very difficult to earn enough pounds by working for the Church of the Night like this. As his sequence grew higher, he might not even have enough money to buy materials. Watching 1,000 pounds fly away before his eyes, it would be a lie to say he didn't feel bad. Audrey stole a quick glance at Mr. Fool and saw that he had no reaction. The level of what we're discussing is probably too low for him. She couldn't help but reflect on how she and Mr. Hanged Man were wasting his precious time on such low-level issues. As a bonus for purchasing the information, I must remind you that you must first digest your current potion before attempting to take a higher sequence potion. So, there's no need to rush in finding the psychology alchemists and the telepathists formula until you've completely digested the potion. I just hope to have ample time to prepare and contact them more naturally. Well then, when will I be able to digest the spectator potion and finish the acting? Is there any criterion for judgment? I hardly ever experience irritability or hear ravings anymore. Audrey posed her question, feeling the conversation was getting back on track. Just as she was looking forward to Mr. Hanged Man's answer, she suddenly heard a rhythmic tapping sound. Audrey was startled at first, then delighted. She turned her head and, as expected, saw the Fool lightly tapping the edge of the long table. Li Meng also sat up straighter, waiting for the Fool to speak. Klein spoke in his usual tone. At low sequences, as long as you act strictly, it can be completely digested within half a year. A month is not impossible either. He looked at Justice and added soothingly, when the time comes, you will naturally understand the signs of complete digestion without needing anyone to teach you. A month, that's wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Fool. Audrey's joy was practically beyond words. I'd better not mention that I digested the sequence 9 potion in half a day and the sequence 8 potion in 3 days. If I accidentally expose myself, I'll probably be kicked out of Saphira Castle by Mr. Fool on the spot and never allowed back in. While recalling the feeling of digesting the potion, Li Meng put on a look of pleasant surprise, astonishment, and disbelief, just like Audrey. Audrey automatically ignored the half-year Klein mentioned and only heard that she only needed a month to digest the potion. After all, who isn't a little princess? Thinking of this, she finally remembered her 2 good sisters who were still struggling at sequence 9. Mr. Fool, do you have any plans to add new members? Klein leaned back in a relaxed manner and replied as he had prepared. In the beginning, it was an experiment, without so many extra considerations. But now, as a regular gathering, members must be strictly selected. Secrecy is our tenet.
For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.